welcome everyone out to our work meeting for the Layton City Council on September 3rd, 2020. What we typically do with our meetings, we'll start out with any type of reports that the council may have. So, do any of you have a report on any of the committees that you serve on or represent? None for you? Okay, Ms. Fitzpatrick?
So, in conjunction with the Communities That Cares, September is Suicide Prevention Month, and I will be attending a Working Minds, which is a facilitator training in the workplace for suicide prevention. And then tomorrow, it's called Safe Message Training, which again is a suicide prevention training. So I'll be attending those, and I think several off the committee will as well.
Yes, okay. I just want to remind council that when we speak, especially with these masks, make sure you kind of get real close to the mic. Okay, so no other reports?
You want me to do this?
Well, that'll be in the council meeting. Okay. We'll go ahead and continue on then with our agenda. Our second item will be a presentation by Ryan Andresen with the Dark Skies. So, Ryan, if you'd like to step up to the podium and state your name, address, and like I've expressed, make sure you talk real close to the mic.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for allowing us to come in and talk. My name's Ryan Andresen. I live at 2222 Snoqualmie. I'm a Layton citizen. I'm also honored to be joined with Antelope Island State Park, and I believe Ted Maestas, your street lighting contractor, should be coming shortly to help present as well. So again, we appreciate you allowing us to do this, and I'm going to try to make it brief, so I have it all scripted here for you. So I have a presentation here about it's kind of titled "It's All in the Light Fixture." And so what we want to talk about is better outdoor lighting techniques. So let me start with the conversation is the purpose is why we spend thousands of dollars to light our streets. So can anybody maybe enlighten us or just kind of explain to us what is the purpose of a street light? I mean, why do we all spend money on them?
Primarily for safety.
Exactly, for safety. So I think what I want to go into is go more into detail is, are we really doing the best job that we can out there with our streetlights? And I think we can improve upon this. And I know what you're thinking, what is it going to cost us? And I want you to put just a hold on that. So let's first talk about visual performance. It's a term that's brought up in the Department of Transportation on visibility at night with drivers. And that's basically the ability for us, the human eye, to see objects at night. And because our eyes are just not adapted to seeing at night, we need to illuminate them with artificial light. I mean, it's just the facts. And to better understand this, we have to understand how the eye works and how it reacts to light. So when the light hits our eyes, and if we can bring down the lights, please. I have a sample of a light here. Hopefully I can see my scene. Let's put this on here. So what's happening right here as you look at this light, your eye tends to adapt to the brightness of this light. It constricts itself so it tries to match that brightness. And the problem with that is there's a consequence. And that takes the shadows and renders them pretty much invisible to your eye. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to talk about a story. Imagine you're at Winco at night, and you watch this person come streaking out of the Winco with the manager yelling, "Thief, thief!" And this individual parks himself right under the SLO2 street light that we have out there on, what is it, Gentile? And you wonder, why did he run right under the street light? I mean, that's odd. Because he knows your eyes can't adapt to the shadows of him hiding behind him. But guess what? you listen to a small 15-minute presentation on getting that light out of your eyes. So watch what happens. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take this light and I'm going to take it out of your eyes. Watch what happens. Is the thief? Somebody tell me who that is.
The Hulk?
How about over here? Hey, what's it?
See him, but I don't know who he is.
He's a famous Disney character. It's Sully.
Oh,
Tell what color it is. Green. Now can you see it? All we did is we took that light source out of your eyes. It's shielding. And we just uncovered a thief, and that's all we really talked about. But do you know what happens when we did that? We did so many more things. We just allowed a driver, that 5-year-old in the crosswalk. Got that. You don't see him. But now you do. And you give that driver a little bit more time, and that's what they need to see that kid. We also took that light and shielded out of your bedroom window, keeping you from having to buy thousands of dollars worth of blackout curtains. The last thing what I want to talk about, look up. Look what it did. Shielded those light photons from going up in the night sky. So a few months ago, I emailed you guys about a study, several studies out there on color and temperature, particularly at night. This one right here is a 5,000 Kelvin temperature bulb. And it has some particular characteristics of suppressing melatonin, which is a key ingredient to your wellness. So hopefully you were able to take a look at those studies. Again, a Nobel Prize was awarded for this study. Now I'd like to present Wendy Wilson with Antelope Island State Park, and she's going to talk about that last little bit, covering up the night sky.
All right. Thanks for letting us come and visit with you tonight. My name is Wendy Wilson. I'm the Assistant Park Manager at Antelope Island State Park. Back in 2017, after about a year and a half application process, Antelope Island State Park was designated by the International Dark Sky Association as an International Dark Sky Park. And one of the things I want to be clear right off is that when we talk about dark skies, that doesn't mean dark ground. So there's it's dark skies. It's about putting light effectively on the ground. So as a park, we've done a lot to protect as much of the night sky as we can by looking at the lights that we have on the park and changing out light fixtures to more that are more full cutoff, removing lights that aren't needed, and the community has responded. Antelope Island has always been a great location for astronomy programs and star parties, but once we received that designation, that excuse me, that interest in those dark skies dramatically increased. We've had families and individuals, community members, travelers looking for dark sky places, photographers out there seeking us out as a place to view the night sky that is also close to lodging and food and gas as they pass through our communities to come out to Antelope Island. Experiencing the night sky necessitates being out late, and so people are looking for places to camp and to eat. And so being at Antelope Island where we're that close to those resources is definitely a bonus. People really do seem hungry, anxious to see the night sky, to experience and touch the night sky again. When we live in a city that's full of excess light, there's no reason to look up anymore because you can't see anything. But at Antelope Island, we provide that opportunity for folks to look up once again and to see the night sky, to see the stars, to see the Milky Way for the first time for many of them in years. And I visited with a guy who hadn't seen the stars like that in decades. And it's simple things like the moon even have a really big pull on folks. Not too long ago, there was a full lunar eclipse, and Ryan and I got together and put together a program called Zoom the Moon, where we just set up telescopes out at the island and invited the community to come out and look through the telescopes at that lunar eclipse. And generally for a program like that, we would get 40, maybe 50 people. We were overwhelmed by over 400 people that came out to look through our telescopes to see the moon. People are hungry for that. And even just more recently with the comet Neowise and the meteor shower, we didn't hold programs for those because of the current climate, but the gates were open at the island and people once again poured into the park to witness those astronomical events with their families, binoculars, telescopes, cameras, just to see those things clearly in the night sky. So people are hungry for that opportunity to touch the sky once again. And at Antelope Island, we're happy to provide that and try to provide opportunities for that. But community support really is critical to helping to maintain the quality of those night skies, the dark skies over Antelope Island. We've really done about all we can on a park level. And now we need the communities closest to the park to help by choosing outdoor lighting that is both safe for the community, protecting the community, but also effectively shielding the light so that it puts the light on the ground where it's needed and not up into the sky where it's wasted. I'm just going to wrap up there. But before I do, if you haven't been out to Antelope Island, I invite you to come out, whether it's to one of our programs or just to bring your family out to the night sky and view that and to come see the Milky Way again. Thanks for your time, and I'll turn the time back over to Ryan.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I think it's imperative that communities adopt their local state parks and become partners in this. And I think Layton really has an opportunity here to be a great partner in this. And so what I want to go to, if we can go to the other slide, it'll be a couple slides down. Keep going, keep going. So these are kind of Wendy's images, that some of the events that we've put on, and you can go through just a couple more. The star events of our community that comes out. This one in particular, just recently, did you guys get to see the comet Neowise? Beautiful. It only we only get something like this about every 20, 30 years. And I went out there to take this photograph, and people were everywhere, everywhere. They know that they can come out and see this kind of stuff. And it was very cool. The next slide, please. So here you can kind of see the sky glow that's coming from us, that's illuminating out there. And then the next slide, the best part of all, let's talk money. Okay, we did some research with Ted. Ted, are you out there? Not yet. I don't know where Ted went. Anyways, we can get Ted. So what we did is we did a cost breakdown of the SLO2. Everybody's familiar with the SLO2? You had a presentation on this a couple weeks ago on the cost. So what we did is we took the 500 SLO2s that you have. This was about 6 months ago. I think you're probably over that now. At a cost of $2,500 a pop. And we estimated $1 a month to operate each light. So we took that over a lifespan of the 20-year lifespan of those lights, which came up to a total monthly cost over that 20 years of, like, it's hard for me to see, it's about $5,700 a month. Then we took that light, and as I described to you, the different tiers of light and where that light is going, this is how much we are paying for that light. So effectively, we're about 35–40%, so about $2,000 a month that we pay. That's effective. It's going on the street, on the sidewalk where we want it. But the escaping stuff, because of that light source is being pushed out and up and not directed directly at the target, we have some waste there. So we spend $1,100 creating road glare, $1,400 into bedroom windows a month. And then last thing, we spend over $1,000 a month just shining it up in the sky with this light. So if we can go to the next one. So I was going to turn the time over to Ted, so I'm going to kind of speak for him. I went to Ted and I said, hey, look, if I'm going to present to Layton, I need to come with a light that looks like the SLO2 and costs less. What can you do? And he came back with me and says, I can get you, so you have 3 lights. You have, can you align me what, so you have the small residential SLO2, and then you have a feeder. Is it a feeder light that's semi? Okay, so those are for the feeder routes that are kind of more decorative. And then you have kind of these overhangs that, yeah. He came to me and said, I can give you all those lights for cheaper. I don't know what the exact cost. He was going to present that tonight with for you. So not only we have this solution for you of cutting that glare down for safety, we have even beaten the cost that you're paying right now for all 3 of those lights. That's the best part about it. So I will have Ted send all that stuff over to you guys to take a look at. I seriously think that you ought to take a look at it. I mean, go to the next slide. You can kind of see a little bit closer picture. So they've eliminated the glass, and then up in the top there, you can see where the light source is. It's up in that top part, and it has that black rim that creates that full cutoff. And also, he can offer those in 2200 Kelvin, which is well outside that spectrum that is a melatonin suppressant. Very, very cool. Thank you again for having us, and I appreciate it. I know I've come in here several times, but I think this is a really good deal for us, and I think you ought to seriously take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We really appreciate that demonstration there, and Wendy for joining him. And just make sure that if you send that information that you send it to our city engineer, Mr. Steve Jackson, and then we'll have him kind of run those numbers for us and compare it. So thank you, Ryan. We appreciate that. Okay. How about, there's no discussion. Do you guys have any comments? Yeah, I read that. I read your eyes there.
So I don't know if this is towards Ryan or to Steve, but with the Kelvin issue, if our lights are at 5,000 Kelvin, can just utilizing existing fixtures and lowering the Kelvin work? We just built a new house, and all of our lighting in our ceiling is adjustable from 2,500 to 5,000 Kelvin. We can pick per room by just a matter of a switch the amount of Kelvin in a room. So brighter in the kitchen, less in the bedrooms, you know, those kinds of things. Is that an option in the lighting that we currently have to at least look at, if we don't replace the fixtures, reducing the Kelvin?
So our lights don't currently have that capability that you purchase the light at the Kelvin level that you want. All of our lights are currently 4,000 K, so they are not the 5,000 that's referenced, but they are higher than the 3,000 that a lot of people consider the dark sky standard. But there are ways to increase the brightness of the lights. The lumens of the light is what they refer that to, and so you can put more light on the ground based on how much wattage that you put into the lights, and or decrease that. So
Okay. Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions or discussion? Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Okay, I'd like to move on then. Next up, we have Mr. Tracy Probert, who's our financial director. He is, oh, excuse me. I'm out of order here. I'm on item number 3 here, which is the discussion on the budget regarding a budget amendment on the ramp commission. And while you're setting up, Mr. Price, I want to acknowledge we have one of our commissioners in the audience, Mr. or Miss Lorraine Kamal, are you planning on staying for both meetings? Are you planning on staying for both meetings? Okay. Okay. Well, if you want to address us, I'll allow you to do that at the end of this meeting under the mayor's report. So thank you for joining us. Okay. So, Mr. Price, your turn.
Thank you, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes.
This evening, I have the great pleasure, Mayor and council members, of introducing a proposed budget amendment for the RAMP fund. I'm sure you remember, in the 2021 proposed budget, we originally had a Chapel Street Park Playground project that was considered for funding through both the general fund and the RAMP project. Wisely, I think, because of COVID, that was one of the projects that we either postponed or took out of the budget. I believe this one was taken out of the budget with the intent that it could come back at a later time. That project included playgrounds and a lot of sidewalk and site work that was associated with an aging playground. This evening, I'd like to talk with you about the Andy Adams Park tennis court renovation. This is a previously funded project to replace 2 aging tennis courts with, originally it was funded to replace 2 tennis courts with 2 new tennis courts. Because of the condition of the concrete, it would have to be a total demolition and then a complete rebuild of those courts. As we came close to letting that contract out, we looked at our plan for pickleball in the city, and as you are aware of, we've talked about, we would like to have pickleball in every neighborhood park so that all of our residences can make it to that facility and enjoy pickleball. As we looked at this, we felt that it was a wise decision to change one of the tennis courts into a pickleball complex of 4. And so on this drawing, you can see that on the right side, we would have 4 permanent pickleball courts. And on the left side of that complex, we would have 1 permanent tennis court. To make this happen, it necessitated quite a few changes to the physical footprint of the courts. It extended the concrete area. It required new lighting and a retaining wall. And so we'll talk about some of those costs in a moment. We also are planning to paint or stripe the tennis court so that if people wanted to bring their own nets, they could play pickleball on that area. And so for say a city tournament or a neighborhood tournament, if we brought out our pickleball nets, we could be playing on all 4 courts at one time. And we believe that's a real advantage to this situation. And so when we looked at it changing from to tennis and pickleball, we have looked at the costs. It is an expensive endeavor because of the footprint enlargement. And so all of the costs that are in the yellow are required because of this larger footprint. And so that includes the things I talked about, the lighting, the larger area, and the retaining walls. And so right now we are funded to $150,000. We are in need of $186,974 to allow this project to move forward. We would like to suggest that we modify this year's RAMP award. And we had the Chapel Street project lined up. We took that off, and that saved us money in the RAMP fund as well as the general fund. I'm sure if you remember, the RAMP dollars are a little different than the general fund. We raise the RAMP dollars in the previous year, or the prior year, I'm sorry. And so we save money and build up that fund all year, and then on July 1, we award the money for that year. And so thankfully this year, as Tracy will talk about, our budget has come in very good. The ramp fund has been well-funded. If you notice, in the 2019 category, we brought in 1 million, it's the second number from the bottom, 1,367,886. That is right where we projected it to be. And so we're very pleased about that. When you bring that together with the monies that were left over from last year's project, we started July 1 of 2020 with $1,436,502.98. We had awarded $1,313,000. Because of the deduction of the Chapel Street project, the ramp funds alone only saved us $269,786. And so we feel that there is a very strong ramp fund in place, that the money is not something that we're projecting, it's something that's in the account currently. And we would like to recommend this amendment so that we can move ahead with the Andy Adams Pickleball Tennis Court Complex. And that amendment would be for $186,974. This project was presented to the parks, or I'm sorry, to both, but it was specifically presented to the ramp commission, and they reviewed it and questioned us thoroughly on it. At the end of the day, understanding that this is simply an amendment to the existing ramp awards, they felt comfortable and unanimously voted to approve this as a recommendation for the council. So at this time, I'd like to entertain any questions or concerns that you have.
Can you go back to the previous slide? So it does replace the landscaping and the trees. Is there any seating or anything like that surrounding the pickleball courts or anything?
Yes, and I apologize, I should have been more thorough. Prior to adding pickleball, we could simply pluck the existing concrete out, keep the rock walls around that court complex, as well as a lot of the landscaping. It would be a very surgical construction. We'd take out what was there and put back in the tennis. With this cost estimate that you see in front of you, it includes not only the wall that supports it, but landscaping around the complex or the court.
Okay, is there, the reason why I'm asking about, that there is the potential for 8 courts, so maybe a small tournament. Is there any seating available for those
Benches.
waiting to get on the courts and stuff like that? Benches or?
That's an excellent idea. We had not put that into this cost estimate. We could certainly look at that.
Because
The retaining walls, please, there are, the existing retaining walls on the east side do have some, what we would call seating or
Okay.
a bench type appearance.
okay.
Mr. Thomas?
First of all, barring the next questions, the entranceway into it, we're changing that?
Yeah.
So you don't have to play that little run around the corner game?
See if I can
No,
get
I
that.
mean to get into the courts.
No, that's a good point, and thank you for bringing it up. As you can see, the old court, the access to the court was on the far east side, right here. That's
Yeah.
where the existing gate is. We moved that gate right here,
Okay?
and the reason we did that is we do not want everyone to have to walk through all of these courts to get to the tennis. By using this access and creating gates right here, you can separately enter the tennis side of it, or you can enter through a separate gate and go to the pickleball side
So-
of the complex.
So the way this is structured now, you've got an alleyway, so you're walking into a fenced area?
No, there's not an alleyway, there's 2 separate gates. Because the fence that goes
You
down
mean
this.
it's the same place, there's just 2 gates?
Yeah, the fence will come right down between these to provide some ball security as you're playing tennis or pickleball. As you enter the court complex, you'll either go through the tennis gate,
Oh, I
which
see.
is a full ADA accessible gate, or you will go through the pickleball gate, which is also an ADA accessible
Yeah,
gate.
but then you're still,
You
I
do
know
s-
what you're doing, but you haven't solved the problem. You're still walking through where they're playing.
You do, if you're playing on this fall court,
Either on the other court too.
if you're on the north court, courts, you'll have to walk past that.
Yeah,
And that was, we looked at the possibility of adding a gate down here as
And?
well.
why not?
It was just cost prohibitive because you have to build a ramp up.
Is it higher?
It is. It's
Oh,
about
okay.
3 to 4 feet higher than the surrounding area. And so we would have to take out that rock retaining wall that's on that edge and build a fully accessible ramp up to that
How far are
gate.
you going west? I mean, how much bigger is the foot?
Oh, I think it's about 15 feet.
15 feet?
Yeah,
So that's
15 to
why the,
18.
you're tearing out all this, the rock or whatever is over there, and then you're putting in a retaining wall to hold it. Okay, so,
And we originally looked at sloping the soil away
Well,
from the
yeah.
courts.
no, it's-
That took away the holding capacity of the basin,
okay,
the
okay.
retention basin.
but you made it wider to accommodate,
4 extra courts.
well, yeah, but 4 courts fit in no matter what. I mean, you can put 4 courts on a tennis court, and you don't have to make it wider.
Well, to get them in there with the proper side setbacks,
Okay.
you do have to make it a little wider.
Okay, because I got a couple of issues. One of them is, why don't you just build a fence on, you gotta put a fence in there anyway,
Between the
between the
tennis and the
tennis
pickleball.
area and the pickleball court. So why don't you have 2, so you have a walkway? And then you have a little entrance gate going into the tennis court, and one going into these 2 courts, and one going into those 2.
And so if we did that, we would extend the west retaining wall probably another 6
3
to 8 feet.
3 feet?
Well, again, that we need them to be ADA accessible. And
So is
so
that bigger than 3?
it's probably
Oh,
4
okay.
feet
Okay.
would be the minimum. But to be comfortable for 2,
Sure.
2 people
No,
to
I
walk.
understand, no, and I would agree totally if, okay, I'm just asking, I'm just trying to figure out things,
No,
okay?
David, we did look at that. It's the same philosophy that you put into the Shoreline Junior High gym with the alley or the curtains.
Yeah,
The
right,
double curtains and an alley so you don't have to walk through the courts.
right,
It's an excellent idea. It was just cost prohibitive at this point. We were already asking for 180,000 additional. We can find the numbers, but that would be an additional,
30 bucks?
no, I'm afraid it'd be a little more than that, probably
Okay,
10 to 20,000.
well, I'm not done, so if we're gonna add up money, okay, hang on. So, you're gonna put in, you're gonna tape off or paint some pickleball courts on the left?
On the
As
tennis
you're
court.
looking at it, I'm sorry, whatever,
The pink colored ones.
west. Huh?
The pink colored ones on your diagram.
I can't see them. Okay. You ever played tennis?
A long time ago.
Okay, me too, long time ago. I realize people are gonna come there, right? They bring their own nets, is that how you work it? Yeah, you said that. And then they set up and play. Then what happens if somebody wants to play tennis?
Our policies would allow tennis to be a priority.
What
So,
if they're already there playing pickleball?
Again, they may wait till the pickleball game is over and then the tennis players could flow on.
Okay, anytime you share a court, you know what happens. Biggest guy always wins, and the little people have to move on. And that concerns me, even though I like the idea of adding some pickleball courts. I mean, give them the opportunity. But at the same time, I know the headache you gotta play. It's like going down, little kids going down to play basketball at Ellison, they don't get to play if there's big kids on there, even if they wait, even if the game's over. I mean, you know, it's just, and I'm not used to doing this, but anyway, I'd kind of like to see what would it cost to put an extra pickleball courts and not have a tennis court.
Dave, both Daves,
Yeah.
the thought that's coming through my mind is kind of along that line. If you're saying that there's nothing wrong with the facility there other than the concrete, come in, relay concrete, what I'm seeing is a whole lot of destruction and rebuilding of an area that's basically could still be good if you replace the tennis courts. So the idea I had, and I'm not totally familiar, but I think north of the Bowery is fairly level, isn't it? Up there?
And north of the Bowery is the
That's the-
towers, the communication towers and buildings inside of a fence. And then next to that, north of the pavilion itself is
Playground.
So my opinion is I don't know the numbers. It's obviously going to cost a little more, but I would almost see rather than tear the whole thing down and have to rebuild a existing retaining wall and everything else to accommodate this, to just replace the tennis courts and build the pickleball complex and put the new lights and all of that there and use what's existing here. Is that making sense? Because it seems like we're tearing a lot out to put a pickleball court in where maybe we should just start new, or apply that money to expand Chapel Street or down West Layton at the new elementary school and put an 8 complex. Because all the conversation I've heard from the pickleball people is they want a minimum of 8, and we're still not doing that here. So I would maybe think about just redoing the tennis courts and putting that pickleball money court somewhere else. Maybe even Andy Adams if there's a place for it, or up one of the others.
No, we can certainly look at that, Councilman. Again, coming back to our idea is that each park should have both of these amenities. And I think you agree with that. If we were to turn these back to just simple, or 2 tennis courts, we could do that. And then if we wanted to build additional pickleball, it would have to be the only site that is left without removing either a playground or the communication towers is on the far north side of the site, the northeast corner of that park. It could be put in there to add 8 pickleball courts. You're looking at between probably 300,000 to 400,000.
Yeah, but if you
Closer to
took,
4.
if you took this, expanded it, and made 8 courts there, okay, and I know we took out a tennis court, okay? Now, just for fun, I've been traveling around looking at tennis courts, okay? I go by the Bayview ones 3 times a week, because my mom lives up there, and so I go up, and then I always go up in the evening. And they're not in the best shape, you know, and you know, you're fixing the pickleball thing at
The
Bayview.
surfacing of Bayview?
Yeah, at
Yes.
Bayview because of some problems. And so anyway, I've gone by there. I've never seen a tennis player. I've seen pickleball players playing on those courts that have issues, not horrendous, but you know, I mean, we've talked about it. But the tennis court, the only place I've ever seen there were pickleball people screwing around, I guess. And then, of course, we haven't had tennis at, what's that called? Andy Adams,
This one?
for 2 years.
Yeah, a year and a half.
Yeah, and the only people I've ever seen play there are the same people. And evidently they've gone somewhere else for a while. There's not a plethora of them, a bunch. There's just, if there's 6, I'm pushing it. I think there's only 4 that ever play there.
My similar to you, Dave, my anecdotal experience has been similar in that I don't see a lot of tennis players. So does Parks and Rec have an idea of the demographics of how, you know, if it's necessary, just for the sake of, I mean, do we have to have a tennis court in every park just for the sake of having a tennis court in every park? Or perhaps tennis is not as popular as it used to be, and pickleball should be in every park, whereas tennis shouldn't, and we shouldn't just have them be equal for equal's sake. And that's, I don't know, I'm asking you on
Well,
that.
a couple questions in there. No, I don't have, you know, direct usage numbers. We have seen pickleball, it's exploding, as we're all aware of. And tennis playing has gone down a little bit as baby boomers have aged. And so they're more able to play pickleball. We look at tennis and pickleball as all of our amenities in our parks. We know that some of our parks, the playgrounds are much more used than others, but we would not want to build a neighborhood park without a playground, because one of the key components to a neighborhood park is that residents can walk to it and experience these amenities. That's why we feel that it's important to have both pickleball and tennis. If we are looking to develop a large pickleball court, we demonstrated a plan at Ellison Park that we could pull the trigger on. We have talked often about 8 courts at a park. That is not what the social pickleball groups want. 8 is still not enough. As I met with them as recently as this last month, what they're looking at is a minimum of 12. And in my humble opinion, it is worth our long-term life investment in this park to have both amenities. If what we're after as a city is a large complex, then let's go to work on it. And with our ramp funding, and over the course of 1 or 2 or 3 years, we could set aside some money each year and then pull the trigger on a beautiful complex that would be, 12 courts, and would actually provide the environment that they're after.
I guess my concern
my
would be
opinion.
the aesthetic over the reality, in that we have a tennis court that no one's playing on, and we have a pickleball court that has a line. That's my worry. And if we don't have any demographic information to know, it seems like we're just hoping that if we build the tennis court, some people will come and play there, when maybe there isn't that many tennis players in the city, and maybe times have changed. And so I'm not saying that's my decision. That's just my idea. My thought process is that if we want to make the courts modern, and then we want the amenities to be modernized, and I don't want to sink money into a tennis court that no one's going to play in, just because we want to be able to tell the dozen people who play tennis throughout the whole city that you have a pickleball or a tennis court that you can walk to. So
I have a question. So how many tennis courts are at Chapel Street?
2?
2, and we already have 4 pickleball. And I can tell you that I was there Sunday morning at 9:30, and there was lines of people waiting to get on the pickleball court on a Sunday morning. So I can't imagine what it's like at night. But the whole time I was there, not one person got on the tennis courts. So would that be an option to convert one of those, and that's just a matter of a resurface, I would assume, to convert one of those courts? It's still going to leave you 1 tennis. It's going to give you the 8 pickleball. Up here, if you were to do this, you build the 4, and it appears that you don't have to make the left structure as large if you only do a tennis court on it. And now you have tennis and pickleball at this court. Chapel Street has 8 in a tennis court. You've not invested a whole lot of money out at Chapel Street to convert one, a net and some paint to resurface it. And you've kind of accomplished the same thing. You have the same number of pickleball, actually more tennis, and you're not doing the overlap of tennis, and Dave's right. If you've got 4 people playing on the pickleball court and somebody comes to play tennis, and one started an hour ago and one started 10 minutes ago, that person playing tennis is going to have to wait a full 50 minutes for an hour to be up to free up all four, and then you got to keep people from getting on the pickleball court while the guy's waiting for the tennis court. I don't see that logistically that's a smart thing. So either leave it as just a tennis court and make that extension smaller. But like I said, has that been considered to make that move to put 8 at Chapel Street?
No, we have not considered that. We can. You would be doing exactly what we did at Bayview Park. And so remember, the Chapel Street parks are approximately the same age as Bayview. And so if we resurfaced them like we did Bayview, you would see the same fundamental problems to the concrete that you see at Bayview. And that is that at that time, they didn't use post-tensioning, so they have construction joints in the concrete. And at Bayview, that's where you're seeing that deterioration of the surface. And so again, great ideas,
But you're gonna go back and fix that
but it's
at Bayview.
it is a constant cosmetic fix. You know, we do that yearly.
No, you don't.
Well, as far as I know,
You never fixed Bayview.
oh no, to keep it in pristine condition, we would have to do that yearly.
Does that mean you're telling me you're gonna have to resurface it every year,
Not the entire surface, just where that cold joint is.
where the cold joint is?
Yeah.
But you're gonna fill that with that gold stuff we used at the skate park?
Well,
I don't know what it's called.
yeah, we would reach out to find the best
Yeah,
solution. and
because
we're looking at
that's
that
worked
now.
well at skate park. It's hard. They didn't tear it up.
But again, you know, we can discuss this more another time, but wherever we have a cold joint, those concrete pads are shifting. And so
Yeah, sure.
however we patch it this year, with time, a little time, we'll have to patch it again. And so I just don't want to give you the illusion that we could resurface Chapel Park and have it be as good as a brand-new court.
Okay.
I think we have an opportunity here with this to have 8 pickleball courts, make it inviting, make it new, make it. I mean, they just did the same thing in South Jordan where they opened up 8-court pickleball pavilions, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to South Jordan. But this is just recent, and that was the thing that the mayor down there was so excited about. The thing that she's heard the most about, as the mayor of South Jordan, is pickleball. The same thing here.
Hey, it's not just the mayor, it's the council, it's everybody.
But this group, we represent everyone, and yes, they are passionate about pickleball and can be like this with us and squeaky wheel. But it shows though. It's not like, hey, we're not going to play, build the courts, but we won't play. No, they are there. They're there all the time. I see the same thing that Don mentions, and here's an opportunity for us to offer something, to be able to say we are not a master parks plan that had been put together and a previous council said, yep, this is what we're doing, and we go forward. But just like our general plan, yeah, times are changed and realities kind of switch, and we ought to be able to react, not in a crazy way, but here's an opportunity to react in a way that I feel would benefit the residents of Layton City.
Okay, I'll add my 2 cents here as well. I actually like the idea that we're having 8 courts somewhere, especially on the east side, because I know that that's where a lot of them that we've heard from live. My concern is we've heard the social aspect of it, that's their gathering point. The only thing I am concerned about with this proposal is, again, the approach of, as far as how you've outlined that, as far as you either have to go on one side or the other. But I do know in playing the game, you have to put your paddles up on the board to get your next seat in, so while you're waiting. And that would be kind of cumbersome on how you're going to do that with this layout, as well as the fact of well, I know we've got a Bowery there that they can sit in as far as shade, but I think we need some benches as well. And kind of like that spot for them to sit and socialize while they're waiting to play. So if we can address a couple of those issues, I'd feel better about it.
So Dave, other than Sandridge, what other tennis courts are on the east side? Is there one at Greyhawk?
Yes.
So I get in the, I mean, I have a pickleball court in my neighborhood, but it's almost always full and it's only one court. So we end up driving somewhere to go play pickleball, usually Chapel Street. So I don't think it's asking too much. I mean, if this was the only tennis court on the east side of Layton, I would have a problem with it. But there are other options out there that from Sandridge to Andy Adams isn't that far of a drive that they couldn't simply drive to play tennis. I kind of agree with the 8-court thing. The other thing is I don't want us to be losing our residents to neighboring communities. And Kaysville and Clearfield have some really nice complexes. I mean, that Clearfield, when they opened up, is amazing. And it is competition because it's got over the 11 courts. And so, but I still think it would be great if we somehow got 8 courts somewhere. And whether we do this and tennis is gone from there and you go play at Sandridge or Greyhawk or whatever, or it be looked at
Well, if-
some other park.
Those that travel, they'll go to the high school
Yeah.
Well,
because those are the best courts.
Yep.
Probably in Ellison's good courts too. But anyway, I got a different question, kinda. You're talking about expanding the cement, the footprint,
Yes.
and so you're expanding into the detention, retention. I don't know which one, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there, no, he's not here. You know, is there a specific amount of water we gotta hold?
Yes.
Okay, and so that plays into it?
That was a primary driving factor in putting a retaining wall in.
That's why you put the retaining wall, yeah, I understand that, yeah. Can we, I mean, could you move the retaining wall a little? That way, west?
Yes. We'll look with engineering to see what capacity is lost by that,
Yeah,
but there are some other ways that we could mitigate a small amount of loss.
okay. Because if we, you know, you're obviously got, you know, no matter what you do, you're gonna widen it. If, in fact, we think we could get 8 courts in there and want to, and can afford to do all those fun things, then I think we need to make it, if whatever we decide to do, but if you gotta go back and look, then I think we need to make some alleyways. So we need to expand it. If in fact, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen, but
well,
my
if what I-
concern is, if we don't do it right, you know, I'm not, you know, just make it done right. And
I was
I
to-
think you have to a point.
Yeah, Mr. Price, I know you need some direction and guidance here from the council, and that's really what he's here for. And if I was to summarize what I'm hearing, and let me make sure we're going in the right direction here, is you would rather see 8 pickleball courts rather than 8 regular striped pickleball courts, no tennis, leave the tennis at the other places, which if you do that, then that would help with your alleyway down the middle. You'd only need a small little fence to separate the 2 courts, and you can accommodate all the play and not have 2 entrances either. You just need 1 entrance. So am I correct in speaking on behalf of the council here? Is that what you guys are kind of driving at, maybe?
Partly, but the other option is you can leave those tennis and go and put your money on somewhere else and get the 8 or 12 that you want at Chapel or wherever else. That's the other option that was brought up.
This way, you've almost got most of the money. You're gonna have to add more than
Yeah,
186,000,
you would.
you know, but it's almost done.
But
The
you're-
other way,
you're
you're
spending-
almost starting from scratch.
Here you're spending 100 and, I think it was 145 or whatever to
86.
remove and redo a wall.
No, you're gonna, you gotta put the wall in anyway.
And you're
Well,
adding.
not if you
All
leave
you're
it and
gonna
you do it
is
somewhere else.
widen it 6 feet on each side.
Well, if you go back to the cost estimates, there was $100,000+ to move that wall and rebuild it,
And new lights.
and new
Yeah,
lights.
well, sure, but the walls,
Thank you.
it's there now.
No,
I
but
mean,
they're gonna
you're
tear it
build
out.
Now,
They're gonna tear it out and put a new one in.
yeah, well, they're gonna do that anyway. That's already in the cost, except for the extension of the length might be an extra 4 feet.
Right,
So
but
that's
what I'm
8
saying-
feet of concrete that's,
What I'm saying is if you don't do that retaining wall, you leave it as 2 tennis courts, you got 145 or whatever to put lighting
okay.
and everything else somewhere else in the city.
Well, this thing, if it doesn't happen today, you're not building it till
Tomorrow.
spring,
Good answer.
not till spring. So,
I think you know as a council that you point and we'll go.
okay. Well, I would like to see then if we made 2 pickleball courts not 2, but 2 sets of 4, what it would take. And then I like the idea if we left it with 4 pickleball courts and the tennis court, and then if we saved any money, which I think we would, and then if we applied it at Chapel or wherever, to make, wherever we got 4, I guess it'd have to be Chapel, then to put it there and see what that would cost.
We can certainly explore all these options. If I may, it sounds like a good portion of you would like to see pickleball here. If that is your decision, we can move in that direction. My only concern, and I'll say it and then be done with it, is number one, I don't think 8 will solve the issue for a large complex. You may understand that, but if we build 8 here, they will still be pushing for 12 or 16.
Sure, it's
They
like
will.
soccer,
But the supply and demand's here, and that's what we're trying to deal with.
And then the other issue is, again, we as staff, we look at these courts a little differently than you do. Our jobs are different. My job is to look at the lifetime of this court. If we build it, we hope it'll be here for 30-plus years. And during that time, there is a good chance that, like all sports, we will see tennis come back up. My crystal ball's a little cloudy, but there is that possibility. And by making this decision today, you set a
Sure.
trend for a long time.
Okay, so along those lines, what is the key difference then between the pickleball and the tennis? It's the net, correct? And the posts or whatever?
painting.
And, well, of course, the painting, but as far as construction-wise.
Yeah, they
So
would be,
so can you, without putting in the net and the post, you could actually, since you're reconstructing, you could put the column in the cement and cap it, should it change, right?
if it changed, these are concerns that we think of as we're moving forward. If you want this 8 courts, we should move with 8 courts.
So, Dave, I think too, one of the things is that we need to quit thinking of this as an old people's game, pickleball. When I go play, and I'm not that old, I'm usually the oldest person there. I've watched a bunch of teenagers play. Like, I'm talking 10 to 15 years of age. One of the national doubles champions in the country is 12 years of age. She plays with her mother. I think this is coming up. I think you're going to start seeing it offered in the schools. I think you're going to start seeing pickleball teams in the schools. I don't think it's just because it's an older person's sport and we all go away, the younger people are going to take back up tennis. I think this sport is a generational thing and multi-generational thing. I mean, I play with grandkids. I think it's here to stay for a long time. And in 30 years, resurface the court and put it back to tennis, if that's what they choose to play, but because the courts are the same size. But I think for usage right now, because pretty much everywhere I go, there's a waiting list. Even when we were out at Steed Park at the 15 or 16 courts at that brand new complex out there, there were people having their rackets waiting to get on the courts. So
I agree with you, Don.
I think Mr. Jensen wants to wrap this up here, so,
I do have a
because
thought.
we do have several other items on our agenda.
There's the thought.
I think clearly there's been a misunderstanding on the part of the staff with regard to the direction the council wanted to go. This was a subject that just 2 meetings ago was talked about, and the staff presented the pickleball plan. And I think in the absence of any feedback at that point in time regarding the plan, the staff was left with the feeling that the direction that we were heading and presented at that time was sufficient. It's clear that that has changed, or we've misunderstood. And so what I would suggest, Madam Mayor, is that rather than continue to take time in this setting, it's all been very productive and helpful for the staff to understand the direction you'd like us to go, is that we circle back and maybe at the next work meeting, or as soon as possible, bring back this whole issue and have like we're doing here, have a very robust discussion about that, and make sure that we're aligned in terms of our approach in the plan with what the direction of the council is. Also, I think we'll be in a better position to talk about the reality of the costs associated with them, which is a very important factor. You're talking about a 12-court complex. You're not talking about a few $100,000. You're talking probably $1.2 million to build it. So it's just important that we have, I think, in a setting where we don't have other agenda items that are pressing us, we can devote the whole time to that and really work through these details and provide better information for you guys to make these kind of decisions. That would be just a suggestion, hopefully productive.
So just, I'll add this, that because of the meeting that we had, because of the presentation that we had, because it was live streamed, because it was presented to everybody, more discussions happened, more conversations happened like it's supposed to happen, and we now have more information. We've been out to the park. We've done probably more in the last couple of weeks than I've ever done for pickleball. I'm just trying to understand and educate. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming with that plan. And then, yes, let's with the information we have now, let's figure out the way forward. So thank you.
It was just a matter of seeing it in practice, seeing what it looks like. So yeah, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
I think
Thank
Mr.
you.
Day wants to.
Yeah, I just got
quick
one
thing.
comment, and that is, I think one of your main questions, which hasn't been answered yet, is about the mid-year adjustment of the ramp tax funds, and whether we would be willing to make that adjustment for whatever project. So I think it would be helpful if you got a consensus from the council if they're willing to do that, whether it's for this project, this pickleball, or whatever else.
Yeah, if we bring you the right project.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think bring us the right project and we'll consider that.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Price. Okay, Mr. Probert, thank you for being so patient with us.
Mayor, members of the council, yeah, never mind, there's not any money left after that discussion, so we can just move on. Mr. Jensen, your city manager, asked me to come to you tonight, and I'll try and be brief because I know there's some other items on the agenda, and discuss where we've been with our budget for 2020, 2021, where we're at, and where we're going to go. I think it's important to note that we were already prepared for some kind of an economic downturn as a city. We have very healthy reserves. We always budget very conservatively. Generally, we already have the money in hand before we commit to some big kind of project like those that have just been discussed. We're also very fortunate to be in a very diverse economy in Layton. We have many different things, as I discussed in the last meeting. Some things have gone down, other things have buoyed us up, and so we're in a very good position. That being said, let's go. Let's take you through a few slides here. This was what we presented back when we talked about adopting the budget, and the main item to look at is we decided to reduce a few things, right? Nobody knew what coronavirus and earthquakes and riots and all the different things we've experienced would do to us financially, shutdowns and then reopenings. And so we took a 10% reduction in our sales tax as a precautionary measure. Took $2.3 million out of our budgeted revenue to present to you a budget that would be conservative and that we could move forward with. We also eliminated $1.2 million in projects, postponed those for now until an upcoming year, and $1.9 million. It's not quite that amount in a number I'll discuss in a minute because of the decisions that were made on merit increases, but $1.9 million put on hold. So the expenditures were reduced $3.2 million, revenues reduced $2.3 million, so that put us in a very, very conservative position, given that we didn't know how March, April, May, June revenue numbers would come in. And so apologize for talking fast. We'll try and get through this. So where do we end up at? Right now, I mean, we haven't finalized everything. It's not audited, but these are our first preliminary estimates. You know, our property tax revenue is looking at coming in almost $400,000 above budget. Sales tax revenue, $330,000 above budget. And that's not above the reduced number, that's above budget. That would be a very good year, even in a year when we weren't in coronavirus. Some of these other revenues that have fallen, you know, maybe I didn't do a great job anticipating how much telecommunications tax would fall, but, you know, they've come down some. Our building permits, I mean, that continues to be just a very, very thriving area in the community, up $430,000 over budget, and just slightly over the prior year, but you can see that it continues to be at that level. This negative amount for intergovernmental, that'll change once we get all our final reconciliations, and that negative number will actually be a lower negative number. And then we can see the other revenues are up. All in all, in the general fund, we're $900,000 over what we had budgeted. That's a very good position to be in. That's a similar position that we've been in for the last 5 or 6 years, during very good times when there wasn't, you know, a virus or anything else, you know, that could potentially threaten our revenue stream. So just to point that out to you where we're at. So again, you know, our actual in 2019 sales tax, 5.9 million. Our actual in 2020, 16.7. That's an $826,000 increase, 5.2%. That's a higher percentage increase than we've had the last couple of years. And compared to budget, 330,000, a 2%, you know, over budget as far as revenue collections. So we can see here was our 2018 sales tax, 2019 sales tax. Our 2020 budget was trying to get us more in line with the trend, but our actual ended up better than that, which is the following column, 16.7. So what I would propose, I think I'm being very conservative here, is that our 2021 projection could land at 16.1 million. That's 4% below our prior year actual collections, so I think that still leaves us in a very conservative position as far as sales tax is concerned. There's no reason to believe property tax isn't going to come in at or above what we've budgeted based on where it's landed for 2020. So what does that do for us? Well, it puts us in a conservative position, 4% below 2020. We've just added a major retailer to the city. I do not think we're going to be 4% below what we collected during 2020, but we want to remain conservative. If we come in at 16.1 million, that will be sufficient to cover all items that are on hold in the budget and still maintain a reserve of at least 15%. And so that puts us in a healthy position all around and does allow us to release everything that's on hold. Mr. Jensen is not recommending that we release everything on hold, and so that's my next slide. I just wanted you to know that I believe that budget projection for revenue is enough to cover that. The recommendation of items to release from hold at this time would be one, the agreed upon 496,000, that's the number that was different, and in the actual adoption of the budget, it was noted that 496,000 in the general fund is what was recommended for merit increases. To release funding for 2 new crossing guards and a pay increase for the crossing guards in order to remain competitive with the other communities. 2 new police officers and their patrol vehicles, a code enforcement supervisor and their vehicle, a new marked school resource officer vehicle, which their current vehicle is a 2009. So that's a pretty old, I mean, that's an 11-year-old vehicle, 12-year-old probably. And then with winter season coming up, he found it necessary that we should release the money for the snow plow and the dump bed. So out of what is actually $1,844,000 that's on hold with the change in the merit increase number, Mr. Jensen's proposed, and I would agree with it, we release $1 million of that's on hold. And this would be the list of items that remain on hold, the total up to $816,000. I'll send this presentation over to you. and so that you can review these details of what is requested to be released and what's to remain on hold. In my discussions with Mr. Jensen, he would anticipate that we'd leave those on hold until until January 1, and then we'd come back, we'd still continue to review July through probably October's sales tax figures and our property tax figures, and then we'd come back and see what we need to do with the rest of these. That's it. Are there any questions?
No question, but comment. I'm 100% for what you just said. So I think that's the smart move.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm with you, Don. I read that in the Wall Street Journal, the employment numbers for local governments nationwide went down 6.5%, and we don't have any. And we withheld the merit pay because we were trying to be super conservative and trying to make sure that things were okay. And I'm with you, Don. I mean, this is the whole reason why we did that, so that we could see that there was a recovery, and it's just a testament to how well the city's run financially. So thanks, Tracy and Alex. I would be in favor of moving forward with that as soon as we can.
I think everything I agree with, but there should be one case of water for.
One case of water.
You okay? So you just kind of throw that in?
Okay.
But no, I support it 100%. I think everything is positive. Our numbers are great. Even if we had a downturn, we're still fine.
Right.
And I think that's, and so we've got obligations that we've promised in some respects, and we're the governing body that's got to just say yay or nay, and I'm yay. I think it's a good proposal, and yet we still have $1 million that we're kind of holding back on, so I think it's great.
Great.
Other comments there? I think that you pretty well got your answer there. I'd have to, again, echo, yes, in the past, thank goodness there's been some actions taken that has allowed us to keep Layton in the financial situation we are. I mean, to me, it's good planning. It's a way of diversion. I mean, obviously, we've got the diversity in our income streams that has allowed us to remain strong, because I do know there's other cities that are suffering severely within our district or within our county. So, my hat's off to the past administration as well as the governing bodies to be able to put us in this situation to deal with what we have today. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chad Wilkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Just want to take just a brief moment and talk about our proposed parking amendment. I would just want to mention before I start into some of the items we're going to discuss tonight that we had a very productive meeting with Councilmember Fitzpatrick this morning. Went into the afternoon a little bit, and as part of that, I took the wrong road there. Excuse me. As part of that discussion, we discovered a couple of different things. One is that with our new process for converting the files from a Microsoft Word file to the Municode format, there was some information that didn't make that transfer. We had a couple items that we had already noticed, but also that Councilmember Fitzpatrick pointed out that were not included, that should have been included in the ordinance language. So that needs to be added to that ordinance language prior to adoption. This is language you've already seen in previous packets that just, as we made that formatting change, did not translate over to the new Unicode software, so it needs to be included. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is there were some refinements that, as we went through the ordinance with Councilmember Fitzpatrick, there were several items. These are the items that we've tried to quantify, or to not quantify, but to record from Table 12-1, which is where our parking rates, our new parking rates are, that would help, refinements that would help to clarify, that would help to make this maybe a little bit more understandable by the public and others that are using this ordinance, and these are some, I'm not going to go through each of those individually, but this is a list of those things that we went through that we would like to provide some additional clarity. And there are items outside of Table 12-1 as well that we have not yet put on a list, but that will be listed out for you. So our plan would be to make these additional refinements, to come back to the council, to talk through each of these refinements so you know what those refinements were. Again, that's a list of those, but most of them are fairly minor with a few exceptions. That being said, we wanted to talk about a few things. One is, another one of these refinements outside of 12-1 is our ADA standards. Not a lot to say about that, but just to add some references that were requested at our last meeting. Bicycle parking was another place where we had, for whatever reason, text that didn't translate over from the previous version that you had seen to this version that was put into MuniCode. One of the issues with the MuniCode program is that we currently have to we can't copy and paste our tables into that program, so we have to type the tables
everything
out. And if you can imagine, with this one, you saw the table. So there was a high probability that we would have some things that would get omitted, or we actually had some language added too that wasn't in the ordinance we need to take back out. So with that, we're going through those and refining. A couple things I wanted to follow up with you on. You'd asked the question about 500-foot walking distance on our shared parking agreement. So Brandon went through, put together a couple of exhibits that show what that is. Within the mall, that 500 feet would be from that south entrance. If you walk into Dick's and go over to the food court, that's about 500 feet. Outside, you can see that's the distance from that food court entrance out to the bus stop on that northeast side of the Loop Road. Other examples of that, if you're in Walmart and you're getting your tires repaired and you decide you need to head over to McDonald's, that's about 500 feet from that tire center over there to that other side of the store. So it is very doable. We do feel that that's a good walking distance that is, again, something that someone could reasonably walk and still share the parking in it with another use. We also looked at, as an exterior example, that Target's parking lot. That green circle is kind of the radius that we looked at. You can see that 500-foot measurement. It gets you out to those perimeters of the parking lot, but again, we felt that that's very walkable still. It's very doable for someone that to share parking with between those uses within 500 feet. Any questions on that before I move on to some of the other issues? Hopefully that helps to illustrate what that distance is for you. One issue that we did talk with Councilmember Fitzpatrick about today that came up, and this actually came through the Planning Commission with our discussions with them. We had a recent application for an accessory dwelling unit where the applicant desired to convert some of their garage space into living space, and because of that, they needed to replace that parking with additional garage space. Our standard and our policy has been, if someone removes garage space, we have a requirement for a minimum amount of garage space in our code. They have to replace that. And we held to that standard with this particular applicant and said, if you're going to remove this garage space, there has to be additional garage space constructed to make up for that. The Planning Commission expressed a desire for us to include the ability for that to be that minimum parking space, rather than having to be within a garage, to be within a carport. So as a point of clarification, carports are allowed in the city right now if you have that minimum garage space in addition. So you can build a garage and a carport as long as you meet the setbacks. In this case, what we're talking about is having someone that would have the carport as their sole parking area. It wouldn't be in addition to, it would be as a parking area. The Planning Commission looked at this. The area that we were looking at when we had this discussion, I will just be very specific. It was an older part of town where there was a person that wanted to increase their living area, and that would give them an option to build a carport instead of constructing a garage. In their case, their concern was the cost of constructing in a garage. They felt that they could be more economical in building a carport and in having that as an option for them. So as our recommendation tonight is actually going to be to give us some additional time to make these refinements and to come back to you at your next meeting. Open the public hearing tonight, take public comment, but give us a chance to come back at your next meeting with some of these refinements. That being said, this is one issue that we'd like to have some policy direction from the council so that we can come back to you with an ordinance that follows whatever that policy direction is. Again, this is something that was put in the recommendation of the Planning Commission to provide additional flexibility. That being said, we do have a requirement right now, which we hold people to, that is you have to have that minimum parking for the single-family dwellings provided in a garage at this point, not in a carport. One thing that we've contemplated is if you did allow carports, there could be some additional language added that says essentially that they can't be used for personal storage. One of the issues that we talked about with Councilmember Fitzpatrick is there is I don't want to use words like majority, but there are a lot of people that use these for storage areas. There are some that don't, and that was brought up, that there are people that maintain these and don't do that, but
Define a storage area.
that would be a place where you put your junk.
I know, but what do you consider where it becomes?
I think what the concern would be is that it fills up so much that you can't actually park there.
Okay, so you can't park a car.
Yeah,
But
so
if
there
you could
could
park
be
a car,
refuse or, what's that?
if you could park a car,
So
I mean,
like
I'm
if they have
thinking if I'm putting in a
Potentially,
carport, I
yeah.
got shovels and rakes and
Yeah.
a lawnmower and
Well, that's
stuff
the
hanging
concern.
from the
that,
ceiling.
You know, everybody has those
Sure.
things. We all have lawnmowers
Yeah.
and things, and I think the concern is that in a garage, those are hidden, right? You can have some of those
Yeah,
items
but you
that-
build out your garage and you only have a carport.
That's also one of the considerations. Yeah, you're right. So I think that's the planning commission's desire was to give options and not require that they have to have a garage.
Right.
And this is an attempt to say, hey, maybe there's a way to do that and still limit some of that personal storage. So that's something that we'd like to get. I'm going to go through a couple more things before I kind of get your input on that. Another item that we talked about was joint use parking. The idea here in our current code is that we have a provision that says substantial conflicts between operating hours of uses in this joint use parking table are an issue, and that it defines substantial. The current code says substantial is 4 hours where we have overlapping times of use by those existing uses. Our purpose and intent was that we talked about 4 hours of overlapping peak demand, not just of overlapping use. If we say 4 hours of overlapping use is the kicker, then really we have 4 hours of overlapping use for each of these uses. It would preclude that from happening. What we're talking about is those peak times. If we have more than 4 hours where your peaks are the same, then that creates a substantial conflict. In this case, you can see retail and restaurant have the same peak at between noon and 1. So we want to make sure that's clear. That was something we talked about with Councilmember Fitzpatrick, but that's our intent. If there's issues with that, we'd like to understand those issues, but that's our intent with that standard. Then one other thing to follow up with you asked us to look at potential language for electric vehicle parking, excuse me. We found, as we talked to developers, parking consultants, parking engineers, including Hale Engineering, that there's not a huge demand right now for these, although the technology is there, that they are expensive. And the recommendation we had from Hale Engineering was that rather than requiring them a certain percentage of electric vehicles, there's some things you can do that make those more attractive to a developer or to users. And that is if you allow electric vehicles, you allow that to count towards the minimum parking requirement, so they don't have to do this in addition to that minimum parking requirement, that you make sure that these spaces down here on this second bullet underneath this section, that you make sure that they are accessible and in close proximity to the building, essentially. So you're trying to make sure that one of the incentives is that you put this in the best spot, right? They're the most convenient spot for the parking in the complex. You provide some signage that directs drivers to where they are, and you stripe them at a standard size base so that people can use them. So that was the recommendation from our consulting engineer that we had to take a look at this, is that we, rather than making it a stick, that we use the carrot approach and have some incentives that are fairly minimal at this point, and that we can revisit that later. So if you'd like us to, we can include that language in those refinements, and we come back to you on the 17th, if that's your desire. So those are the three things that I wanted to talk about. If you want to give me some feedback on that, that's great. If you want to wait until the next meeting, we could also do that at that point. But our recommendation, again, and I just want to make sure that we knew that we also had some very good feedback on some of the text clarity and correctness edits that we're going to come back and get for you. What's that? Our good council member, and also from others that helped us look at that. So with that, if I can wait for the feedback until our regular meeting, but our recommendation tonight will be to open the public hearing, to allow for public comment, And then we'd love to answer any other questions you may have, and then come back with those refinements at the next meeting.
I'm good with that. Are you guys good with that? Okay, very good. So we have about 3 minutes left. Do you want to get into,
We could wait for that next item till the
Or
next
just
meeting if you'd like
cover-
as well, if you have other things you want to take care of before that break, so. That's a pretty straightforward item, so.
right, yeah. Council? Well, that's what I was gonna say. Are you guys need a break, or can we? Commissioner Kamalu, I'd really like to acknowledge you in the audience, and I know it'd be nice if you want to address this. We will entertain your time now, or we'll give you. Well, you can come up and say that real quick, like. Yeah, yeah, we want to hear it in the mic.
Could you use our names and not just say everybody?
Well, thank you. I'm Laureen Kamalu, and I actually live in Kaysville, and
We won't
I've
hold
been
that
there
against you.
I'm familiar with the pickleball discussions very well from being just a resident very close to this location right here. Anyway, commissioners typically try to get around to work sessions of the different 15 cities in our county, and also council meetings. But during COVID, that just kind of all shut down. And so since you have some new council members and Mayor Petro in the mayor position, I've just been itching to come and to see you in action. And she and I were together at the Wasatch Waste meeting yesterday, and so I was reminded again that it might be a really good time to come. So truly, I just appreciate a well-run city and great city manager. Tracy Probert serves on our internal audit committee at the county. I've been in 3 meetings today with your chief of police. He's wonderful. And so I just appreciate, it's been extraordinary times for a while. We continue in those extraordinary times. And it takes a lot of really good people to help all of our cities and our county get through this. So thank you so much for your work. It's just a pleasure to work alongside you.
Okay,
Good.
for coming
Thank
up
you.
to the mic, I'm going to
A
fulfill
Layton
my
City one?
promise. Yes. If you'd like to come up and,
Wear it proudly in Kaysville.
yeah, wear it proudly.
Right.
Okay,
Wear that
thank
at
you.
home.
So you're welcome to stay for the next half, but if not, that's okay. We understand it's a long meeting, so thank you very much for coming up and being with us. And again, yes, thank you for your service at the county level. We really appreciate it. Okay. It's now 7 o'clock. We did not take a break, but I think this next meeting will probably go fairly quickly. So I'd now like to take the time to move into, hang on before I get started. Kim, are you good to keep going? I'm sorry, I forgot that I was supposed to stop. I know, so do I need to give you a minute? Okay. Okay, you're good? Okay, very good. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone out to our city council meeting tonight at 7 p.m. We're starting on time, September 3rd, 2020. As we've done in the past, it's customary that we kind of rotate around as far as who's going to conduct our opening exercises. We have a new month, so with that, Councilmember Don Fitzpatrick is going to lead us in the pledge and opening ceremony. So,
Well, actually, Councilmember Bloxham is going to lead the pledge, and I'll do the prayer.
okay, that works.
Please rise and follow me in repeating the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be assembled this evening as the City Council, staff, and residents of this wonderful city. We are grateful for all that we have, for the beautiful surroundings that are around us, and grateful for the base that protects us to our north. We ask at this time that Thou would bless this meeting, that it will be a civil meeting, that the discourses will be pleasant, and that we keep in mind that the business of the city and the residents are our priority. We also ask at this time to please watch over and protect our police and our fire and their families, and especially in this hard time. We also ask Thee to bless any within our boundaries that are in need of support, whether it be financial or health or whatever they stand in need of, that Thou seest need to maybe provide for them. Again, we're grateful for all that we have and ask for these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, thank you for conducting that for me. Okay, council, we have a couple of minutes that we need to approve, so I'll look for a motion on the minutes.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of Layton City Council work meeting May 21, 2020, and minutes of Layton City Council meeting August 6, 2020.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any
I'm sorry,
discussion?
Mayor, I didn't get a second.
Second.
Mr. Morris? Councilman Morris, okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from our work meeting May 21st, 2020, and our council meeting from August 6th, 2020. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, moving on, we are now to item number 2, which is our municipal event announcements. So, council, I'll look for anyone that may have an announcement here.
You want?
Oh,
Oh.
I think the birthday boy has an announcement here.
Yours is coming.
That was from last time.
Anyway, in the amphitheater on October 1st, Jax is a production company that has done plays in the amphitheater for a long time. And they're putting on a presentation. It's the Mega Mix, so it's a bunch of things. Annie, Bright Star, Matilda, Newsies, Grease, Aladdin. So it's a bunch of stuff, so you can take your kids and they'll like it. People that know how to sing might like it. They can sing along if they do it quietly. Don't. But anyway, it starts at 6 o'clock, October 1st. And I'm sure they'd love to have people there, especially with what's been going on. So, and I'm sure they'll take precautions to make sure nobody sits by anybody, and especially Steve and a few others.
Mask required and social distancing, as well as the fact that this is a free event, from what I understand.
Is it going to be like the other free events? Do you still have to go on and get a ticket?
Not
Free ticket. But
probably not for that one, but anything to do with the Arts Council, you have to go on and get a free ticket.
okay.
Yeah.
So this is an outside entity. They actually are funded. They did get some funding from our ramp
For the ramp.
and
Yeah.
to help them with their programming. And this is one of those. This will be their programming and fulfilling that ramp requirement. So that's why we felt like it was necessary to let the public know that this is available to them, and to maybe put it on your calendar to come and support them. Okay, council, anybody else have any municipal announcements or? Very good. Okay, we'll move on to our citizens' comment. Anyone wishing to approach the podium to give us any type of citizens' comments here, just keep in mind that we ask your comments to be fairly direct. And if you want to comment on anything else that's on our agenda, since the only items we really have on our agenda is a public hearing, you could wait until we open up that public hearing and comment on those specific items. If it's outside of those two items, then certainly we'd love to hear from you. Just approach either side of the room here and state your name and address for the record. So.
Good evening. My name's William R. Connett, C-O-N-N-E-T-T, at 286 North, 1500 East, Layton. My concern today is, as you know, they've been building some new houses, lots and that down where I live, and there's been quite a bit of dirt coming in on side dumps, 20-yard side dumps, and double bogies coming in, about over 100. And when they come up on our road and that, they're actually lifting their, their overweight wheels. And you could see just in the past 2 months, the road's really taking a hit. I know you had the road snakes put out for the sealing and that, but there's some of them where you could see the seal actually is sinking right in past, the top. So it's actually, there's a little chasm there. A couple places have sunk on the road now that the trucks are driving by. We've noticed that some of the other people that live on the street, that it's actually moved their sewer lines where it's actually gone off of the sewer. So now you have raw sewer going into the main that's it's not actually hitting. We just found this out, so you wouldn't have a chance to know about it. That's why we're bringing it up at this meeting. The water that's, as you know, in that area, the 3 springs that feed that by that street, they're not that far underneath the water bed. The other day, they pulled up some curbs to repair that, and I went down to watch, and a little prior history, I used to build roads and that in Minnesota. And so I went down to look, and underneath the road base, down where Mr. Rettenberger lives, there's just topsoil. There's no road base. So as they were pulling the curbs and that out, they were pulling out a better topsoil than I have in my yard. So there is no road base there. There was no gravel or anything off that for the road underneath there. My concern is I've lived there for 36 years, and I had to pull eye teeth to even have them come out and look where there were some holes that needed to be filled for public safety. And that was took 2 years to get somebody to come out there and look at it. And then they didn't do anything, so I went and got Barber Green myself and put it in the holes, just for public safety, so somebody wouldn't break their leg or, their ankle. One thing, the road's getting bad. Where the trucks were going, it's now pushed the one drainage thing. You can go up there and see it. It's pushed it down. I took some pictures with my phone, and it's actually down about 1.5 inches. So that means that's moving. And the road's cracking, the other part's lifting up, and it's, they said they're going to top it, just put a skim on it, but I don't think that's going to get it. Because it's almost a waste of money to do that, because the sealer, where they put the snakes down, is not going to really seal. It's just going to crack after they do it, and water's going to still penetrate and get down underneath there. So that's one of my concerns. Another was concerned is we have some people on our block that, we've called to have them come look at it for their yards are junk. They don't have watered their yards. Not one gentleman hasn't watered his yard in going on 2 years. He has trees that are dying in his front of his yard. And as the mayor knows, she's seen that there's water there. And so you have to, it hasn't been watered if the trees are dying. And the other person, basically, his yard's real junky. I mean, everybody else spends a lot of time and money to make, appropriate, for our neighborhood. And I believe both these places we looked up are rented. They're being rented, so that falls underneath the owners. But, it's a concern. I know the city's looked at it, and we've been working with the city, and, I know your hands are tied. And what I guess it comes up to is going to be something that the city's going to set a higher standard for people to keep their yards up. I mean, because it's not fair to everybody else that spends a lot of money to keep their house, their facade, their yards, fixing up their parkways, to have somebody else just trash out. And that's my biggest concern, is how can we get that on an agenda, one, to see about what we could do for enforcement. Not being, really picky about it or nitpicking, but as you see the condition of the homes in that, compared to everybody else that's been spending, there's a few people in there that I know they've spent in excess of $75,000 to fix their homes up and that and make them presentable. And we've had new neighbors move in, and they've spent $35,000 just to fix the front of the house, so it kind of goes along with everybody else's, the place they bought. And personally, I think it's unfair if you have people spending that kind of money to, upkeep and make it look here nice and Layton, that you have other people that don't care. You know, and our hands are kind of tied. What can you do? It's not really cool to shun people or, you know, be rude, but you got to have at least something, find out what's going out in that. It's hard for us. You know, it's just something that'd be nice to bring up to the you know, city council, and that how can we put a fix on this so people understand, you know, it behooves everybody to keep a good standard. And my one last point is, what do we have to do on our block to get our road redone? I've been there for 36 years, and nothing's ever been done to the road, except for the road snakes we just got this last week. So I would just like to know, what can I do, or what can my neighbors do to get our little road, you've seen it,
I have.
just to get it improved. You're having people that are going to be buying almost $1 million homes, and they're going to be driving past ours to get to theirs. You know, and I think that's kind of funny for somebody else to move into Layton to buy pretty much $1 million home, to have to go down a shoddy road and stuff like that and see other people's houses that don't keep it up. For when they're spending that kind of much money, that's going to be a tax base for the, you know, the city. Just a point. I'm not trying to throw rocks at anybody, but just my concern, and thank you for hearing me today.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Koenig. And if you do have those photos, I would, if you wouldn't mind, probably passing them on to Alex.
Do
Okay.
you have an email address that I could?
So,
I have them on my phone, but I could email them, you know, from off that.
Right.
But
okay, we'll have you pass those on, and as far as in regards to your enforcements, I will tell you that in the previous work meeting, we had discussed an item that will help with that, because we've been shorthanded as far as our enforcements
We'll probably make it
staff,
easier
so
for you.
so
I
we'll
could
end
give-
up,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
that's okay. So yes, we are addressing that issue.
Can you-
And I do know, as far as the road itself, we'll make a note of this address and kind of see where that falls. We did go through and do a survey on the entire city and kind of do a grading on the roads, you know, A, B, C, D, or an F, and see where they fall, so that we know that we can maintain that. So I'll find out where that grading comes from and then let you know. Okay.
I just need an address.
Yeah,
I want to
didn't
see
get
it.
the whole thing either.
Okay, 286 North, 1500 East, Layton, Utah.
Thank you.
Oh, you sure it's in Layton, right?
44558.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, email address if you need to get in
No,
contact.
I just want to
Okay.
see it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Okay, is there anyone else?
Good evening, Council. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name's Terry Rettenberger. I live at 318 North, 1500 East. And I have to agree with Bill and a lot of other neighbors here about that we have to address the situation with the road. It's terrible. We never had that road redone ever since I've been living there. I moved in there in 86, and the only time it's ever been anything done on it is alls when they patched it and had it taken to dug up for sewer. But it's terrible. And I got a problem with that because we have in 1550 East, which is across the road, they've had their things done twice. Why is it they can have theirs done and we can't have ours done? And I like to address the thing with as far as the homes and stuff that we were talking about some of the stuff that's being done out there. I talked to you, Joy, and you told me to call code enforcement. I did.
Mm-hmm.
The officer came up and looked at it. He told me, he said there's nothing he can do. Although we're required, as far as when I bought the house, to take and put the yard in, you only have so many months and stuff to put a yard in and get it landscaped. There is nothing there to take and say about keeping the thing up. That seems kind of ludicrous to me that somebody would put something in and not do it. But a lot of these homes now are, since they're rentals, they don't care. They don't have nothing invested in it. There should be something there that they have to take and at least water their yard. When they don't water the yard, you have weeds. Weeds come up, the wind blows, it blows across the street. We got to take and pay for lawn care and poison and stuff to kill the weeds. That's not right. But what I'm here tonight really is a issue that I talked to you about before, Joy, about as far as getting hold of Glenn from the LDS Church. He still refuses to take it into putting tying into the drain, which they took and had with the new adjoining property. They did not take the grade. The way the grade is the water is going to take and come down there. It's going to grade toward going into my back. I am really concerned about that. And I think that we need to take and do something. We need to at least put a berm around there to take and stop the water that's going to come down around where the drain's at. But the drain right now, for the church and stuff, is not connected. And our neighbors, they have problem with water. We really having a big issue with water. And they won't do nothing about it. It's leaching from the church lot. That's not fair. It's not fair for the neighborhood. It's not fair for us. It's a mosquito problem, and we just need to get it taken care of. So I guess my thing is like I said, we need to get that addressed. And you have the phone number, I think, for Glenn. If you don't, I have his card. If you need to take and have a copy of it or something, I'd be more than glad to give it to you. But I've talked to him more than once about getting this issue done. They told me they would have it done in a couple weeks. They put the sprinklers in, they moved the sprinklers, but never did anything with the drain. And what his consensus is that it's been that way for 5 years, so why worry about it? Well, we had to make them put a berm in. When I called the city before, when they first put the church in, there was so much water coming down there, it was flooding everybody there. They finally took and put a berm in there, and then they took and put the drain in there. Well, now the drain is plugged, the water's sitting back there, can't go anyplace. I want to take and pull that big duct out, that big drain out that I want to take, and I can't do that because he won't take and do that to take and be able to hook up to it. So my hands are tied. I'm in limbo. I can't do nothing. So I wish the city would do something, give a little bit more of a bite to take and be able to say, we need to get this done this year, you know. That's all I have to ask, you know. And thank you for letting me speak here tonight.
Thank you. And council, just so you know, I did go up and I've spent quite a bit of time with these folks. And for those that know the old Charm Facer area, that's where we're talking. So it's that the church that would be just to the south of there. And I do know that there is definitely standing water. So, I mean, I think it's something that, obviously, it's up to the property owner, but we're going to have to try to do what we can there.
Just a sec.
Where's the standing water?
Behind these, there's like
On the
three.
new development or the old?
It's on the old, and the new development, I know they're addressing it.
They were gonna put a drain in, the new
Right,
development.
in the new development, but the problem is on the old, basically it's on the south side.
Step up to the mic, please. Never mind.
The church drains down this way. The new development's draining this way, and it's running towards the back of my property. It's right towards the back of my building and the shop. And I have problem right now. I have two 8-inch drains going all the way around that and around the house to get rid of the water. I mean, it's just, and I just can't handle it anymore. I'm telling you, we're gonna have a big problem and stuff if we don't get rid of it. My next door neighbor, they have problem with as far as with their pool and water and stuff. They're having water in their basement. This other young gentleman and stuff, he has the same thing. He's got water in his basement happened to run 3 sump pumps full bore. There's a radical problem here, and we need to get this addressed. If I would have known this before what I know now, you know, if I would have taken, you know, if I would have known then what I know now, I would have never bought that place with the amount of water that was there. I just never would have. I just never in my life dreamed that we'd have anything like that. And our hands are tied. What do we do? Something has to give. And if we can at least get some of that water off the church park property to drain and get rid of that so it's not leaching down in the soil behind us. You know, I got nothing against the church. I really don't. I mean, they beautified it. Everything's great. I don't have a problem with it. But they can't cut grass there because of the water standing. It's 2 feet tall. You know, you look like you could grow rice. And, you know, and Joy was there. She went there and seen it. I mean, all I want is just have some help here and stuff that they can be able to administer this drain. They took and put a brand new box in, this new development, they put a new 8-inch line in. Then why wouldn't you connect it up and hook it up so it'll drain? That's only makes sense. And we can't cover it up. I can't take and pull the other piece out that I want to take and pull out there that's on my property, so I can take and get rid of that old stuff and taking it, and I'm stuck right now. I can't do nothing. So, but I'm worried about in the wintertime, or actually next spring, when it melts and stuff, what are we going to do with the water? Like I said, I've been flooded 3 times. I had the basement, had to have 2x4s and stuff. People come in, drywall had to be replaced. I don't want to have to take and deal with this again. And I mean, I don't think any of the homeowners want to have to deal with that. So, thank you again.
No. Give me your address.
My address is 318 North, 1500 East. And the adjacent property is Sherm's Acres, where the new
That's the
development's
new,
at.
okay.
And behind that, like I said, you can see where it's, all I ask is that where they put the drain, that they
Right.
put like a little bank up there, so they capture the water so it goes in the drain, that don't go in the back of my shop. And you know,
So
and
I'll-
connect that drain from the church that goes.
I'll
to-
see the rice paddy there, so I'll know that's the area.
Yeah, you'll see it if
Okay.
you take
Been
it.
on
If
the
you,
church parking lot.
if you see, yeah, if you go in the church parking lot and you walk back, you'll see a
Okay.
rice paddy there.
That's what I want, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, is there any other, we got one more comment. He's with the same group.
How we doing? My name's Michael John Clay. Address is 294 North, 1500 East, Layton City, 84040. I live right between these 2 gentlemen. I have a video of what that drain line looks like. If you want to plug it into your computer, you can see what the drains have done out in front of my house. I've lived there 3 years, never had any problem with flooding in my house. I called in my contractors because we're putting all new tile downstairs. We got 1 room of tile down, and I get a call, your house is flooding. What do you mean my house is flooding? So we went and I checked into it, cleaned it up. I brought out a camera and I took a camera all the way down to where it ties into the drain. Because of the amount of dirt they brought in there, it's not 100 trucks. They brought in, that development's got 15 houses. Each one of them houses probably has a 100-foot front, you know, basically, just doing basic math.
Mike?
That dirt's probably 20 foot tall by 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, 100 feet for each house. Each house has probably got a lot size of 60 foot in depth, maybe, I don't know. So you're talking more like 30 trucks for 30 days, 900 trucks. That's how many trucks brought that much dirt in. I know Richie, I know Thorogood, they're out on one of my job sites right now. They're good people. I'm not mad about it, but where my sewer comes out of the house, I'm good until I get to the street, basically to the sidewalk. Then all of a sudden, you have breaks in the line where it's shifted, and then when we couldn't even get to the main tie-in for the sewer because he couldn't get his camera to jump up and over. So what you have is you have my sewer line like this, and because of the weight, here's where the tie-in is, it's shifted down. So I get half a sewer now. Because of these breaks in the line and the amount of groundwater we have, you have your storm water draining into my sewer line and going into your sewer. And then it backs up and goes into my house if it gets too overwhelmed. You can see it in the video. You can see the water coming in. You can see where it's coming in at. So I'm asking myself, okay, I just bought a house for XYZ of dollars. I went and completely redid it. New siding, new windows, new doors, gutted the interior, redoing that. And in the process of doing that, I found out the people that sold it to me, they didn't disclose in the real estate contract, which we'll be having a conversation with the Board of Realtors, why they didn't disclose the water problem, which if you know there's something wrong with that property, you're supposed to disclose that in a real estate transaction. If you don't, then currently you're opening yourself up to some things. So that's going to be discussed. They basically said it was a broken sprinkler line. Yeah, $8,000 later and two big-ass French drains, excuse my French. No, it's a little bit more than a sprinkler. I gutted the whole sprinkler system. I'm going rock. Who would want to dump water on that property when you already got a water problem? So I'll leave this with you. You can go ahead and have it, and I'll give it to you, Joy. Take a look at that. You could throw it on the screen right now. You could review it. But you have some big concerns up there. The first thing with this crack seal, because I do paving, crack seal, seal coat, maintenance. That's what those three go together as. Once you've done crack seal for multiple times, I mean, you've got some roads that are so crack sealed, they should just dump that crap out next time because there's so much of it, there's no pavement. There's no pavement there. You strictly have crack seal. So you've really passed the point of maintenance on these roads. You're down to mill and pave. That would probably be the best course of action if you're looking at dollars. But with the underground problem that you have with no sub-base, no nothing, you could be opening up another can of worms, spending that much money just to have it all crack again in the next 5 to 6 years. So the city engineer would have to look at that and make that call. Usually what they did across the other street, which Terry's right, they've done it since I've been there, is a mill and pave. A mill and repave, you can mill it down 2 inches and you put another cap on there. You probably get some life out of that. But to take our taxpayer dollars and do more crack seal and a seal coat, I mean, I can walk out of this door and drop hundreds all the way to my car, throw it away, pick it up, do whatever you're gonna do with it, but you're throwing our dollars away. Okay. So what we'd like to see is the best use of those dollars. Whatever needs to be done, needs to be done. I mean, we can't help that, but let's use our dollars in the right way. And I get it now with the economy going to be shifting a little bit. Your comptroller's probably prioritizing projects that really need to be done and don't need to be done. But after 35 years, I think these guys are probably owed. Me, I'm only 3 years, so that's all right.
That's okay. We appreciate it. We appreciate all your comments, and certainly I appreciate you taking the time to submit that.
When you go back to look for the rice paddies, I was up there tonight, and they actually did take a weed eater and cut them down, because I've been on the phone with Glenn quite a few times. He has moved the sprinkler systems back, and I'm gaining 6 feet of my property back that somebody swiped from me and didn't you know. I had to pay $1,400 to come in and have it surveyed and staked, and found out, well, people have been getting crazy for the last 20 years that I haven't been here. So I've regained my property there. He's been actually good to work with, but they are not addressing that water problem up there. And they've known about it 5 years. Come on, that's pretty bad. Then we have a COVID, we have a pandemic on the hands, and we got mosquitoes. So really, I don't even like sitting out on my deck when mosquitoes are out. Bill's noticed the mosquitoes, they're a lot worse this year. Not that I'm scared of a little thing this big, I can go like that and it's done, but did it pinch me and give me a pandemic, you know, the COVID. So that is a concern to me.
Right, okay. Well,
I just need to know what I'm gonna do with the city as far as this sewer, because I need to do something about it now. Do I come out of pocket another $5-6 grand and I have to take care of it? Or is it the city's responsibility? Because it's at the tie-in. So I guess I gotta, you know.
So we'll look into all this and then get back to you, if you don't mind. So thank you you guys for taking the time.
Is there a timeline that you're gonna, I mean.
Alex, do you wanna tell me how soon we could get back to these folks?
Yeah, because I've got to do something about this water coming into my house. 294 north, 1500 east.
Okay, so yeah, make sure we have your contact information. We'll have one of our staff members check into it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going into
She's
a
got
long
the
weekend.
video so you can see it.
Okay. Okay, we want to thank you, Mike, and you guys for coming in and sharing your comments there. Is there any other citizens' comment on any other topic at this time? Okay, if it's in regards to the same information, same topic, if you could maybe elaborate on additional items or and not rehash what we've already heard. I think if you don't mind,
I understand.
okay, thank you.
These gentlemen did a great job. I just echo what they have to say. I've lived there longer than they
Gotta
have.
say your name and address, Dave.
Councilman Tom. I've known Tom since he was a little boy. I live at 264 North, 1500 East. My name is David Neal. And alls I ask is like these gentlemen have said is we just seek you guys' help to beautify our neighborhood. I mean, we're trying our damnedest to keep a beautiful neighborhood. And like I said, the rentals, they don't do us any justice. And it's pretty sad when you look at the neighborhood going down the toilet, because I was the first home there, and it's a sad moment. And just to comment on the Springs, I was the first home built there.
Mhm.
There was no homes, Peacefield, the Stake Center, nothing was there. Sherm had his fields and his home there. Sherm had a pond there, and Sherm took me out one day. And there was actually 3 underground springs right there in that area. And I don't know if you guys want to look into tapping them or using that water, but that water always kept Sherm's pond full. And it would actually, that water would also migrate down to Adams, Charlie Adams's place. So that's how much water you guys have there, just to reiterate the amount of water that goes through there. It's amazing. But thank you.
Okay. Along those lines, just so, Alex, I'm sure you're aware of this, but I do know that there's a very good map at the museum that identifies all the existing streams or the old streams that were in existence back then, and I think that would be very beneficial. I mean, it was very interesting to see that one. So anyway, thank you, you guys. We appreciate your time. Any other comments at this? Okay, very good. And just to make sure, Gary, you're checking on our online comments. Are we good there? Okay. All right. We're going to move on then in our meeting. And we're going to go ahead and drop down to item number 6, which is our public hearing. So I'm going to turn the time over to Mr. Chad Wilkinson to talk about the rezone request.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council.
Thank you, guys.
This is a rezone request from agriculture to R110. Show the property. It's approximately 1458 North Fort Lane. Here's the approximate location shown with the red star on the map. This is a little bit of a close-up view. The area that's proposed for the rezone is just a little bit under 2 acres. You can see that outlined in red. This also includes a portion of a larger parcel. Recently, the applicants have had some parents that have passed away, and they have a desire to sell off this property. This property is part of a larger agricultural parcel that you can see here to the east. Their desire is to divide that off from that larger parcel and to sell that off. As a part of that, they're also proposing some property line adjustments as part of that subdivision plat that would reduce the 2 existing homes that you can see here slightly in order to keep this larger parcel at the minimum acreage required to maintain their greenbelt status with the county. The applicants have applied not only for this zone change, but also for that subdivision application, which was conditionally approved by the Planning Commission at their last meeting, contingent on this zone change request being approved by the council. The Planning Commission, here's a copy of that subdivision map, just really quick. You can see the resulting lot there on the north, the adjustments that'll take place on these lots to reduce them enough to maintain that minimum acreage for the green belt on this property to the east. There's some dedication that'll occur on Fort Lane as well. And this is again, a change from agriculture to R110, which is supported by the general plan designation for this property. With that, we are recommending approval. The Planning Commission also recommended approval of this zone change, and be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Council, any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing, so I need a motion to open our public hearing regarding the rezone request.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Fitzpatrick, seconded by Councilman Day. So our public hearing is now open. It should, which at this time, basically, if there's anybody in the audience or online that would like to make a comment regarding this rezone, now's your time to stand up to the podium and give us your comments. And there's none? Okay, since this is a live stream as well, Council, if you wouldn't mind, that since we only have 2 items on our public hearing, I'd say let's keep this one open, go ahead and move to our next item, and then we can come back and address both of them. Are you fine with that? Okay. Let's go ahead and proceed then to item B.
Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor and Council, we talked about at our work meeting, this next item, which is a change to our parking standards. Just as a background for those members of the public that are participating remotely, the council has had a couple, well, this would be our 3rd work session tonight, where we've discussed the details of our parking ordinance and the proposed revisions. Just to briefly put up a slide that kind of goes through the reasons for this comprehensive amendment to the parking chapter. We want to apply best practices and standards, new industry standards that have come about as additional refinements to parking studies have been done by the Institute of Transportation Engineers and others. We also want to right-size our parking ratios and dimensions based on current data, based on studies that we've done, improve consistency and format of the code, and create some new parking tool options. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because the council has seen those in previous work sessions. Do want to just talk briefly about some additional refinements that we talked about at the work session. As we met with Councilmember Fitzpatrick today, we identified some items that need to be additionally refined for clarity, for consistency within the code. So we are going to make those changes, and we're proposing that we have some time to make those changes and that we bring those back to the council at your next meeting for review and adoption. At that time, we'll go through each of these refinements in some detail. I do want to just say that we do want to receive some feedback on just 1 or 2 issues. One is the issue of carports. We discussed this in the work session. The Planning Commission has recommended that the council now include carports as an option for meeting the minimum parking standard of our code. And also want to just receive some feedback on the electric vehicle charging station language that we've proposed to the council as a potential way to address those concerns or those questions that were raised at the last council meeting. So with that, our recommendation tonight would be to open the public hearing, take any public comment that we might receive from the public. Also, I'd be happy to answer any other questions the council may have. We spent some time with Councilmember Fitzpatrick today, but there may be others of you that have questions after reviewing the ordinance. Be happy to answer those tonight. Receive a little bit more direction so that we can bring those refinements back to you in one package. And at that point, we'll continue that public hearing and make a decision hopefully that night. So that would be, and our request, just to be again specific, is that we would continue this to a date and time certain, which would be your next meeting on September 17th.
Okay, so council, I guess I realized I probably should have closed that last one, knowing that we're going to keep this one open, but that's okay. In one single motion, we can probably address that when we go to close. So do you want to make a motion to open item B then?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Any second? Second. Okay, it is seconded by Councilman Bloxham. Okay. With that, then our public hearing is open on the municipal code change. Do you want, so at this point, council, we can have discussion on it amongst ourselves. We can also entertain any public comment as well. But like we said, I think it's one of those things that we're going to probably want to table, but go ahead and comment.
So I'd like to start, and first of all, thank you and your staff. I'm sorry you had to miss lunch.
Oh, no problem.
I had no intention of it taking that long.
That was all good.
I want to just express to my fellow council members my concern over the carport issue. And that is currently in new subdivisions, and at least in the R16 to RS, we are not building carports as the single source of a garage space. We are in townhomes or condos or apartments or whatever. I've had an opportunity just recently to ride with code enforcement and went through several areas in which carports are the sole source of parking, covered parking in a residential area, and most of them are in the older areas. And a good portion of them, the car's not there, and it's everything that won't fit in the house is in the carport. We're having a lot of problems, and hopefully it's just a fluke this summer with the COVID that people have nothing better to do but to break into cars and steal bikes and do whatever. But I think a carport in a residential area such as a neighborhood is kind of not only is it an aesthetic issue, it's a safety issue, and it's a here, come steal my bike because it's sitting out on my carport, or my lawnmower, or my whatever. A lot of these carports didn't even have like an enclosed shed area that was attached to it, which might, be an option in some cases. But I just really struggle with any new construction having carports as the sole source and not at least a single car enclosed garage. Now, if somebody has a single car garage and they want to add a carport, I don't have a problem with that. If it's an accessory building, I'm going to build mom and dad a house out back, and I have a house out front, and it has a garage, then yeah, a carport's because it's not the main source of parking, and hopefully there's been some other place to store stuff. That's just kind of my concern. But while I'm talking, and then I promise to be quiet, Chad, just a couple of things that I brought up that I don't see in this, but I know we talked about a lot. But that is the consistency with garages. In one code, it says that they have to be, in our building code, that they have to be a minimum of 12 feet in width. But this is wanting to change it to a minimum of 11 feet in width. And so we need to, I think, bring those two ordinances consistent with each other. And I personally would like to see it left at a minimum of 12 feet. And then one of the other things that's in this ordinance, as it's currently written, is that there's nothing in this provision that prevents or can prevent the parking of RVs on the grass anywhere in the yard while loading that vehicle for 24 hours, which means you could drive your 40-foot RV up right in front of your house on your grass and park it overnight to load it up for camping the next day. I kind of have a little bit of a problem with that. Don't know why it can't be left in the street, or because we have an ordinance that says you can leave them in the street for up to 24 hours while you're actively loading or unloading them. So I think there's options, and not in the middle of your front yard. And then we kind of talked about it before I left, and I don't know if it's further in the document that I couldn't find it or what, but there was the one part where it talks about semi-truck parking on or off street, not in a residential area. And I know we talked about being allowed to park or commercial vehicles on the property, and I can't remember, so we talked about so much, if that got covered or not. So those are my things that are in addition to kind of what you've listed that I would like to make sure that it is verified that it's in the next one. But other than that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to take these right now, Madam Mayor, or just want me to take all the comments from the council and then speak to them, or how would you like me to do that? I can
I'm
take them
fine
as we
either
go,
way.
or it might help my memory a little bit if we take
Go
them
ahead
as
and
we go.
address them now then.
Just real quick, I'll briefly address those. The semi-truck, there's two different provisions of the code. This one covers off-street, which would be on the property. That's prohibited in a residential zone. There's a separate section of code that talks about on-street, so those are both covered. We're not looking at that other section of the code, but the off-street section does prohibit them in residential zones, so that is covered. Yes, the standard, it's not in the building code, it's still in the zoning code. There is a discrepancy that was pointed out between what's proposed and another section of code that requires a 12-foot minimum width garage. So we will be bringing that forward in the next discussion to go through that and talk about the reasons why. And if the council wants to make some changes there, we certainly can. The third one.
The RV on the grass.
RV, yeah, that one's an interesting provision. That's actually in our existing RV section of code. One thing that we identified is that, and I'll see if I can bring it up here, but we've moved the sections related to parking RVs in residential zones from, right now in the code, it's in the recreational vehicle park standards. And when residents and others go to find those RV parking standards for single-family homes, they are always, they can't find them is what it comes down to. So we thought it would make sense to have those in a place where it's logical. Part of that recreational vehicle park standard, though, does give an allowance for people to park these recreational vehicles temporarily on a property for loading and unloading, and it doesn't have any real restrictions on where that could happen. So that was a concern that was brought up by Councilmember Fitzpatrick. Happy to look at that, see if there's other changes. That section of code is open right now for changes if we wanted to make changes to that. And I'll try to bring up that language as I listen to the other questions here real quick so you can see what we're talking about.
You're saying if I want to park my RV in my front yard to load it or unload it, to change it?
That's what it would allow for right now, yeah.
We can do that right now. I mean, I don't want to get to the point where we got to go, if you got 7 people in your home, you have to have 3 bathrooms. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Okay. And so, I mean, I don't know where we're going with this and how it works. Apologize if I sound abrupt.
Well,
But
Dave-
if somebody wants to park there to load up for the night, well, whoopie-doo.
Well, Dave, but you have a driveway and you have in front of your house.
Well, you're
This
making
is
that
allowing you-
decision.
It says anywhere on the lot.
Okay.
So
Well,
anywhere
that's
on the
good.
lot, like I said, you could put a 40-foot RV, pull it up on your grass. You can't park your car on the grass to wash it, but you could park your RV and
Well,
leave
that's
it
okay.
overnight to load it up.
You know,
So
then allow the cars to be on there too. You know, I get to think, what are we limiting everything? I mean, I understand some things, but there's some things I'm like going, I don't get it. You know, if it was like 3 days or something, that's different. You know, I don't want somebody living in it and doing that. But if I got no one's ever stopped me from pulling my car up on the grass. Maybe they should, but they don't. My truck, of course, now my wife put a fence up. I can't do that. But
This is the code section we're talking about. Notwithstanding any provisions contained herein, such facility may be facility meaning the RV, may be located anywhere on the lot except in a clear vision zone for a temporary period not to exceed 24 hours for loading and unloading.
Right.
So that's in the code right now. We didn't have any plans to change that, but whatever the council would like us to do on that.
I'm sure we'll have some discussion, but just
That's the
seems a
purpose of
little
this meeting and
much
or
for me.
to be continued as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this ain't the only thing to do with parking we want to talk about.
Is that all the way down to meeting two? We'll go back to that slide.
Chad, just a question. I know we've chatted in previous meetings about home-based businesses and looking at that as how we, with people working from home, and that's probably not going away for a while, and limiting the employees who can be part of the business, and maybe we're looking at that as to, can we limit more than just, or allow more than just family members? And I'm sure that's the discussion going on as you look at that. How does parking play into that as well? If we do allow
Home-based.
home-based business to have an employee, and then there's parking, how does that, I wouldn't want to say something in this, say, okay, yep, we can't have you parking because of this ordinance, but then we look at home-based businesses and we allow it something, I mean, how are we?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a conflict. We'll bring those standards back at a later date, but right now, our limits are on commercial vehicles, not on someone's private vehicle that they come and park at somebody's house. So if we decide to allow for other outside employees as part of a home occupation, the limit would be on a commercial vehicle, which is defined in code, and there's weights and those kind of things. We're talking about large vehicles. That's where the limit would be. We just have to look and see if that particular home had enough off-street parking for the employees. And that'll be part of a broader discussion on the home occupation standards. But to answer your question, I don't think there's anything in this proposed ordinance that would limit that. But it will limit the parking of commercial vehicles, and that I can bring up that section of code.
So commercial vehicles are going to be defined as, we had an issue with a Snap-on trailer. I remember
Those
that.
are the size vehicles.
That's what we're talking about. Not if someone brings their work vehicle home, it's plastered with their business on the side of it. Their F-150.
F-150. No, it depends on the size though. If you brought a work vehicle home that exceeded our standard,
But it's
which at this
based on
point
weight.
is a ton and a half truck, but that could be we're going to be looking at that standard for the home occupations as well. So
Okay, okay, thank
How
you.
does this affect that commercial Snap-on guy?
It still limits those.
Still the same?
Yep, still limits those the same way. Yep. There's a little bit of exception for where those can be, a little bit of a change there. And I can bring that standard up if you'd like, but that's the change was really related to where they can park those on the lot, not the size of the vehicle.
I just had a question on your electric. Are we talking about this stuff, or is this further?
Yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to have some feedback on that because if you'd
Well,
like us to include it, we'd like to bring it back in this next revision. So yes.
I got the impression, and I don't know, are you making electric vehicles handicap? I
Right
mean,
next to
you
it.
said you got to move them up front? What? I don't get it.
Yeah, pretty close, as
Why?
close as you can get them. That was the suggestion from our consultant as a way to, I guess,
To what?
provide a little bit of an incentive to those that might use those types of vehicles, that they'd be conveniently located to the entrance of buildings.
Because you drive an electric vehicle, you get to park near?
That's the proposal.
Serious?
That's
Need
what
to buy a Tesla,
that's what
Dave.
the suggestion is. That if the council doesn't want to
I
include
think
that
they ought to
provision-
make, this is Layton, I think we need to make like pickup trucks where you can park closer. You
Well, that-
know, because my truck, regretfully, is long. Okay? And it creates a lot of issues when I don't have a problem parking it, but there's people in my family that do. And she has a tendency to back into things. But, you know, and it's because it's long. It is. It's, thank goodness I don't have double cab plus a full bed. It would be ridiculous. And so I got to suffer. I'm not going to, I don't feel like we need to make a break for just because you got an electric vehicle.
And I will say that this is a menu of options too. We don't. It's not.
No, I
It's
understand.
not all or nothing.
Yeah,
If you say, hey, we want to include this one and none of the other ones, that's
yeah,
great with us too.
I get it.
Or
I
if
just,
you don't want to include it at all. That's
I
okay
just
too.
wanted to make sure that's what we were talking about because
Yep.
to me it sounded like
Where they change.
they get a handicap sticker, and so because I'm electric.
They,
If that be
they-
the case, then my car will go electric.
the proposal
Turn the
would be.
radio up.
Yep, the proposal would be to have those located closer for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
My,
Sorry.
I think Councilman Bloxon would like to make a comment here.
yeah, just, this is very technical. It's also very much your guys' profession. So I don't want to get involved in the details. I don't really know if that's really my job. I do have one concern, and I don't know if I've ever pulled into a parking stall and said, "This is just too big. This parking stall, I wish it was smaller." But I have had the opposite, where I pull into a stall and it's too small. And so I kind of wanted to get some more information about the reasoning behind minimizing the stall in just general terms.
You're talking about the dimension standards we talked about last time. Sure, yeah, and let me pull that slide back up that we can look at those proposed dimension standards.
I'm sure, I remember, I think you said, you guys are doing what's the best practice, what's all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is exactly the table I'm looking
So in looking at those dimensions in other cities' codes, also those that were recommended through some of those sources we talked about, some of the engineering standards, ITE, other sources, what we found is pretty consistently the 18 feet was the length of those stalls. And that's even consistent, like we said last time, with the stalls that we have out here in our parking lot in front of the building here. We found that one of the key elements is having your aisle width be properly sized for maneuverability. We're not making any changes or proposing any changes to our aisle width. They'd remain the same. Did some surveys of parking lots around. You do have, I mean, there's no doubt that there are vehicles that don't fit in that 18-foot dimension as well. Most do fit in it, though. You have just very few that don't fit at all. And so, looking at that from an efficient use of land and from the standpoint of how can we right-size those spaces, it's kind of like the discussions we've had previously about making sure that you're not parking for those once-a-year events like the Black Friday. You don't want to create retail parking for that once-a-year event. It's the same way with this. You may have some vehicles that exceed that, but what our experience has been, and I'd be happy to bring back some of that the counts that we did, but our experience has been even on some of those uses where you'd expect to see larger vehicles, that they're, like a Home Depot, for example, that the percentage is very low. Actually, most of those cars can easily fit in an 18-foot space. The key there is having that adequate aisle maneuvering width. And 18 feet can be a big deal as a site planner is trying to put together a plan for a development. That if they can have that reduction of those 2 feet, then that helps them to fit those buildings and dimensions in a little bit better. So again, we're trying to right size. We're basing it on what we've observed, and that is that again, most cities, this is the standard 18 feet. The key element that we found in most of the ordinances is that those aisle widths are bigger to make sure we can still maneuver, and that again, it's going to help with right sizing those parking lots and making more efficient use of land.
When you did the study, I mean, Layton is different probably than downtown Salt Lake or Park City? There's probably a lot more trucks on the west side than there is on the east side. So
I don't have the slides of the different cities, but we looked at cities that were comparable to Layton. Yeah, we didn't really look at downtown Salt Lake too much. It was mostly suburban cities, like Wasatch Front, Sandy Murray, cities up here in Davis County as well. We can bring that data for you next time.
That's helpful. It just helps me kind of understand that.
We have a table that shows all the different dimensions that Brandon's put together, and we'd be happy to bring that for you.
And I apologize, I'm not hearing everybody for whatever reason, probably because this mask is over my mouth. But you're saying that, crap, I just forgot. In the parking, 2022, like Home Depot would be different than Dillard's?
Well, what we're saying
Because
is
Home
even
Depot is going to get a lot more trucks.
Yeah,
than-
and what we're saying is even when we've been to Home Depot, that 18 feet still accommodates almost all the vehicles. Very small percentage that are longer than that
But
dimension.
they're 20 foot now.
They are 20 foot now.
Yeah, so have you
But
been
we're
there?
talking about what we've done is measured the 18 feet, though. We
No, I
haven't looked at
understand.
existing stalls.
So you think if you cut it down 2 feet, it's still going to be fine?
Mhm, we do. Yeah, we're again.
Can
we
I go on
bring
a
that-
ride with you and you show me? Because I don't believe you.
Well, again, it's not going to be. We're trying to right size this for the most vehicles. You're going to have individual exceptions.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying Home Depot, I would dare say 75% of them are pickup trucks.
There are
Okay.
quite a few pickup trucks, but not all those pickup trucks are exceeding that 18-foot dimension.
Well, no. But
So that's
pickup
what I'm
truck's
getting
a
at. Is
little
you might have
harder.
a small percentage that do, but most of those pickup trucks are accommodated in an 18-foot space.
Okay. Could we put a thing on there like in 10 years, so when I die, we'll be fine? I just like to see it.
Well, you can see
You know.
the 18-foot space right out here. That's what we have in this parking lot.
Yeah, I
So
know.
That's,
Is it?
It is.
Okay.
So you can see how that works just right in this parking lot.
Okay,
There's quite a few
that'd be
pickup
good,
trucks out
thanks.
there.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other comments, council?
Yeah. Okay, I haven't gone through all the specifics and really analyzed, but I think one of the good ideas of this is to eliminate the excessive parking lots like at the Target and the Walmarts and all that. Do you feel like, as written now, that will shrink those down to where they're reasonable instead of being so big? Like you said, we don't want to have a parking lot for Black Friday only.
Yeah, that's the plan is that anything new in particular would be limited to no more than 10% above our minimum standards without some type of a special approval. So that's the idea. And this we also feel might give some opportunity for some infill on some of those that have those large parking lots. We showed the picture of the Target parking lot at one of our last work sessions, but even in December when you expect the highest parking demand
remember
because of the holidays, they still have a large area of their parking lot that's not taken up. So not being used at all, actually. So that's what we're trying to do is right size. So we have those more efficient use of land. If we can have some infill in those areas, then that preserves other land from being developed for a longer time.
And then, not only on the length of but there was also a proposal to narrow the stalls, wasn't there?
No, we have some
was that just
compact. There's some
discussion?
compact provisions in there, and those are going to be
So they're still saying the same width?
just some percentage. Yep. For the most part, the compact spaces do go down, but there's only a small percentage of those allowed, depending on your zoning.
But if I'm reading the ordinance right, if it's a grocery store, the big box store, whatever, it remains at the 9 feet, period,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, we've left some of those dimensions the
Which ones
same,
are all
but
So that tends to be more your higher use, opening your car doors and, more than if you go to a salon or something, so.
yeah, there is some provision for some of those grocery type uses and big box uses.
And you know what my last comment will be,
I do.
is the industrial
Trucks.
uses. We still have not addressed that, and it's still not addressed here.
I'm ready to talk about that tonight, though, if you'd like. So this, we got some pictures. Just in case it came up. We did some review of the existing Kroger site there and looked at the parking and the circulation and actually reached out to some of those folks that own the property and talked to them a little bit about the operations. And on the books, and we're proposing to keep that now, is a section devoted to loading area requirements. So this is in the code, and we're not proposing to make any changes to it. I want to just read some of that. Manufacturing, storage, warehouse, et cetera, those uses, or any use similarly involving receipt or distribution by vehicle of materials, can't be approved unless adequate off-street loading space is provided therefore. Other standards, loading berths necessary to properly service that use are required as part of the review. Off-street parking loading spaces have to be located on the same site, et cetera. There's a number of uses there, other standards there based on that use. And then there has to be the maintenance of those loading spaces once it's been provided. What we found is that there actually are, you can see there's a lot of loading space, a lot of area for parking of vehicles and trailers on the lot in that particular use. But there is, as you've mentioned, there is the use of on-street parking there for some of these semis. And as we've had discussions with the property owner, some of these are independent drivers that simply, they've been told to stage on site, they simply don't. They pull up on the street for whatever reason, and that's where they stage their vehicle. That we would see as an operational issue that we'd want to continue to work with the property owner on to try to fix. The other issue that maybe is not as predominant here, but other areas of the city where we see semis parked on the roads is, again, back to that. There are people that use those streets to park their vehicles that are long haul truckers that don't have any other place to park it because we restrict it being parked in their neighborhood. So they have a combination of both those. But clearly, as we've interviewed people, yes, you're right, there are people there that are staging their trucks out on those sites. But we do not feel that it's because there's not adequate area on that site. We also feel that we have some pretty good standards already in place that require those things to be provided. So our recommendation would be not to change the code, at least the off-street parking code, but we may need to review some of those standards for on-street parking and limits and areas where maybe some additional red striping is needed to keep people from parking there and to give adequate view. But we do feel, we went through that after the question was asked, went through our existing code. We're not making any changes to this particular group of standards. That's what we would propose. Is it really has some pretty strong language related to loading areas and provision of those loading areas for those types of uses.
So I think in a way, you're missing the point, because I don't have any question that they have enough loading areas in their facility to load and unload and all that. I don't even have a problem with the guys that are parking on the street where it's not striped red. I have a problem with the guys that are stopped and parked in the lane of traffic and blocking the road. And that happens on a regular basis down there. I don't have a problem if a guy leaves his semi there and goes home and sleeps if he's on a public road and it's in a allowed parking area. Not red curbed or nothing. But that's not what's happening here. They're parking right in the lane of traffic.
And so I think that needs to be something that we look at as an enforcement issue. I don't think there's anything we can do on this off-street parking code to address that, because that's again an on-street parking issue. But I certainly think I've seen the same thing happen throughout the city. Even some places we have car carriers that are parking in the middle of the street and unloading vehicles from that. And I think that's something that does create some issues.
It's different when you're parking in the middle of the street and unloading.
Agreed.
Okay, that's different. What Tom's talking about, they park in the middle of the street and they're there all night. Now, if you go down
Is that what you're
tonight,
talking about, Tom?
They're not there all night, but they're there for
Well, let me tell you
they're
what.
more than a half hour, I'm sure.
The
And not
last
only-
time we
not
had
only
a council meeting, this was mentioned, not to you, Tom mentioned it. So on the way home, I thought, well, I'll see how wide this street is. Well, I went down there and I got boxed in. These trucks didn't move. I was there 40 minutes, 45. Them trucks didn't move. So finally I pulled out around the one, drove up on the grass and the sidewalk, went around him, and there was trucks from Smith's open gate all the way to, what road is it?
Hillfield.
Hillfield Road.
Hillfield Road, in the middle of the street, parked. There was two ladies in two separate cars that were in there. They couldn't get out. They couldn't even turn around because there was guys where I was going. I had to get almost in the dirt to get by them on the right side to get to Hillfield Road. And that was on Thursday night. So, you know, and I'm not saying that's your fault. No,
I
I'm not.
absolutely agree with this issue.
Yeah,
My only point is I don't know that this ordinance is where we address that particular issue. I think we want to address
Okay,
that.
well, I think it's
So-
part of it. but,
Well, I
you
think we
know.
addressed it in our budget adjustment earlier in our work meeting, so I mean, the
No, I
fact
don't
that we
think
got
that
another
fully
enforcement
addresses
measure
it
is
though,
gonna help.
because
Well, I
you
think,
wouldn't open a Walmart and then have them parking all over the street. So why would you open this place and have them parking all over the street?
No, I understand.
I think
no.
the thing that you're missing too, Chad, is the impact it has on the surrounding businesses. They're in and out of Fred Randall's. The complaints I got from him when he first opened about backing in and destroying his gates and his parking lot. And when you cut through, they're all cutting right through his yard. So he shouldn't have to take the brunt of these guys parking on the road. You go down there any night and there's probably somebody sleeping in Fred Marine's parking lot.
Yes.
So
I absolutely agree that this is an
Yeah.
issue. I'm not in any way saying it's not an issue. I'm just, again, this is an off-street parking ordinance. I don't know what off-street parking regulations we could do that would prevent that on-street parking from occurring. That's what I'm getting at. I don't want to hold this particular ordinance up for adoption when we're dealing with an on-street parking issue. This is an off-street parking ordinance, if that makes sense. I totally agree that this is an issue that we need to
the fact
address.
that we're not requiring an off-street parking area, in my opinion, for these guys, is causing the on-street parking problem.
There's a huge off-street parking area, and I don't know,
But they don't allow it.
so
well,
I think,
they
Chuck,
don't
They don't
Oh,
allow their
they-
trucks to go in there and just park.
No,
They're
they have
scheduled
timed-
very tightly.
Yeah, they have timing that they have to, so you're a long haul trucker and you show up and you happen to be 50 minutes early, they're not going to let you in the gate because you have a time that those trucks go through those gates. The only place that's left for them to be is out on the street. And so,
it's my
yeah, it
understanding-
is an off-street or an on-street parking issue, but it has to do with an operational
right,
problem.
that's what I'm saying.
And so I
is
think
it's-
that needs to be handled through the business development department. They need to look at their operations and get that to quit, because I travel that
agree.
quite a bit at night.
Yeah, I absolutely agree this is an issue we need to address through the operational
Yeah.
side of things. Yep.
Yeah. But I do have a one on a semi, and I know when the not the state liquor, is it state liquor store? Yes, added the back side of their building when they did the addition. They have a loading dock that is so short that when those trucks back up to that loading dock, they can't but help be over the sidewalk. But obviously it passed some inspection, but it's such a short loading dock that unless it's a van delivering stuff, but if it's a semi, which I watched today, the guy's truck is out in the street and he's covering the whole sidewalk, backed in to unload in the dock, and he was there at least 15 minutes that I watched him parked over the sidewalk. So again, that's an off-street parking issue because it specifically in this ordinance. So I don't know if they need to be reminded that they can't do that. I don't know where else they're going to unload because that's their main single loading dock that they have. But they put it in a place that prohibits being able to walk on the sidewalk.
One thing we're finding that we have to ask the question of during these site plan reviews is that you'll sometimes have a loading dock, and you have to. A lot of times they'll kind of think of their best case scenario, which is we're going to have this small box truck come up and unload, and then their distribution companies, for a variety of reasons, say, no, we need to use a semi. So we are aware of that issue on some of these, and making sure that they have an adequate place for that. You know, if their model is for a semi, you can't have a spot that's just big enough for a box truck. So that's a question that we need to ask during that review portion.
That's another operational thing that probably needs to be looked at.
That one's not just operational. That one is
That is
this
actually a violation
standard
of
that we
that.
already have, which is that they need to provide that adequate off-street loading space.
That it can't go over a public.
Mm-hmm. And that
Someone
one,
talks about
that
not
one,
going
we
over
do
a
have
public
some
sidewalk.
standards already addressing that. And I'm sorry I talked over you,
No,
please.
that's fine.
So Chad, do we have any information as far as any enforcement that's happened with these semis? As far as Layton PD? I mean, get the word out. Start ticketing the semi drivers, and the word gets out. Hey, you can't park here. We haven't tried that, or we're just allow. If we just allow it, then, and I know I'm looking at you, but I'm talking to all of us. We just allow it, then it's really not an ordinance. It has to be enforced, and until we decide that we want to enforce it, or at least try, then we're going to be having these same discussions, and Tom's still going to be upset. So I don't, and Dave's going to be on the sidewalk or on the grass. So how do we ask the chief about it? How do we go about that, making sure that, let's just try it. Let's just enforce it.
I see Alex is getting up to
Yeah.
address that, so.
Thank you, Councilmember. That is an issue. This has been an issue for years and years and years. It's a cat and mouse game, and we have taken that approach before, and it has an effect as long as you continue to do it, and then it slowly morphs back into it. One of the other challenges, I've made some notes about that very issue, and we'll be aggressive there, is that one of the challenges that will immediately happen is that those trucks that are now parking in the street will spill into the adjacent business park areas, and they'll stage there, and they'll stage up north of Hillfield Road on Marshall and those up there, and then we get a flood of complaints from them, and so we write tickets there, and then they park along Hillfield Road from where the intersection is at the railroad tracks west. And so we write tickets there, and then what they'll do is they'll spill into the residential neighborhoods. So I'm not minimizing any of it. It's really a problem. The long-term solution, which we've addressed several times, but to no lasting effect, is to try to work with the management there. That it's an important business in the community, but to work with them to say you've got to accommodate those trucks a little different way because of the impact on the community. They have adjacent property. We believe that they could easily convert to temporary parking that would allow those trucks to get off. But as it sounds like it's happening now, their default is that, well, those are independent truckers. We don't have the ability to control them. And we say, well, we think you do have the ability by persuasion and your business relationships to say, don't be causing problems for the community when you deliver to our facility. But we've obviously been unsuccessful over time. So we'll make another effort. We just talked about this yesterday with some of the staff about we've got to, again, run up the hill and try to bring a solution. But I'm not minimizing it. It's a real problem, as Tom said. It's really a safety issue as much as more than it is an inconvenience. But it just spills out. It's like playing whack-a-mole, and or something else. You push it here and it comes out there. But we'll go to work on it aggressively and see if we can bring some change. Hopefully the management will be agreeable. We just worked with them. You approved it 2 times ago. Maybe I'm saying too much, but worked with them to accommodate something they requested to exchange the ownership of a water line to their advantage. We were happy to do that because it made sense. So hopefully that kind of an approach will be reciprocated, and we can just work together to identify a problem as we do with the water line, and then work together to solve it. And it usually involves somebody both giving and both taking a little bit. So well-founded points.
So, and I understand that with the business they are for the city, I understand all that. I understand that you can't go in there now and say you're established, you got to have more parking lot. But I think if there was something in the code for the future, it would avoid this problem. And when they do expand, that it's in there to say, okay, you guys got to provide this many off-street parking for your people that come and stack up on the road. That's all I'm asking. I don't expect it to change with their existing facility. But like you say, they have plenty of property that they can accommodate that in the future.
Like similar to the drive-through restaurant stacking type, but on the road.
Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, like
Well, I think you have the opportunity, you always have the opportunity to go to them and say, you got a problem. And they may say, no, you have a problem, see you later. Understand that. But they also might say, well, maybe we can do something. But in your, what you said, with what we do in the future, let's not have any grandfather loophole things. So if you go to expand, then these things start to apply. Because what you've written here solves that problem. If they were going to build it today, and we went ahead and said this is great, right?
This is existing code, so this is
Yeah.
on the books right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
this
that's-
is on the books?
Mhm.
But it wasn't on it when they started?
I think what we've got here again is just operational, right? We've got space on that side. When they designed this building, this site, I should say, I mean, we've looked at that site. There's places where you could still stage vehicles on that. I'm gonna go back to those slides. I'm sorry, that came off there. But there's still area on this lot where you could stage vehicles. It's just, operationally, they don't, my understanding is they don't allow those trucks to come on that property for whatever reason. But the space is there. That's what our analysis has been. So I think when it was approved, that's not to say we couldn't provide more space, but what we need to do is, as Alex said, work with the management and say, we need you to provide some different operational model so that these guys can come onto your site where there's room for them.
Well, Chad, could something be put in this ordinance for moving forward that discusses these large manufacturing facilities and deliveries needing to have queuing spaces on site? That it's not allowed, queuing cannot occur in the street, just like queuing for a fast food restaurant can't occur in the street. Can the queuing for delivery to a warehouse manufacturing facility have to be queued on site, however they choose to do it, so that it's not queuing in the street? Because that's basically what's happening. This is a fast food restaurant occurring in the street, and everybody's lined up before breakfast, and you can't get there till 8 o'clock, and then you can get out of the street. But it's the same principle. You can't do it for any other business. You can't go in the street waiting to do business, and that's what they're doing. They're waiting to do business. And so could something be looked at as far as a queuing and future, then they would have to have the land to be able to do that.
Yes, the answer to that is yes. We feel like it's there, though. We have, if you look at these 4 paragraphs, there's language in there that talks about that the loading space has to be designed, arranged, used, where it doesn't permit loading, unloading, or service from a public street or sidewalk. And then it gives some little caveat language there. But that's what, in terms of coming up with it's really easy for us to look to Hales Engineering or someone like that to say, how many queuing spaces, how many stacking spaces would you need for a fast food restaurant? That's been studied, extensively. But for us to come up with a standard that says Kroger has to have 450 loading or unloading spaces, that's a more difficult thing for us to do. It's really going to be based on their individual use of that property, the number of docks that they have. There's going to be some discretion there that we're going to be looking to them to tell us how they're going to operate, where the people are going to park, where those loading spaces. So I don't know that we can come up with that same kind of stacking standard for this type of a use that says you have to have X minimum number of truck stacking, other than to say just what we've said, which is you can't be approved unless you show us that you've got adequate off-street loading space that doesn't interfere with loading or unloading on a public street, that properly services the use, all the language that we already have in that code.
But they're not loading, unloading, or servicing. They're waiting.
Well,
and have we looked at other
that's
cities?
servicing, that would be included in that loading, unloading. They're waiting to load or unload. So
have we looked at other cities like where, say, Hurricane, well, I don't think it's Hurricane, but wherever the Walmart distribution center is down south, or up north in Tremont or Corinne, wherever the Walmart storage, they have a lot of in and out, or the Associated Foods. Those are the same type of facilities where they not only have their own trucks coming in, but they have outside trucks coming in. And do they have any kind of requirements in their ordinances in those areas to deal with these large manufacturing that have a lot of trucking?
we haven't looked at Hurricane or some of those cities in specific, but my guess is that you're going to find similar language in those codes. We can look, but my guess is you're going to find that same type of language. These
Mostly,
large
Chad,
large
because
distribution uses don't occur as often as a retail use or a restaurant use where you're going to say, okay, we know that that's the number of parking spaces that you need for this use. They're going to be looked at through a conditional use permit or some other process.
But I just mentioned three that are really close together. I mean, we've got Kroger, we've got Associated Foods, and we've got the Corinne facility that are, not very far apart. So we do have those. We may not have more than one in our city ever, but the potential is there with some open land that we would get another, I'll say Associated Foods wanted to build a warehouse distribution center out here, very similar to Smith's. Is this going to be sufficient for what they need? Or like I said, or have some of the other cities that have these that are within Utah, they're not that uncommon, because I just named 3 in addition to Kroger that I'm aware of. And what are the ordinances surrounding those? And Hales may have an answer for that. They've maybe dealt with outside, with other cities with large manufacturing facilities.
There are staging areas that within the trucking industry that are close by. The problem is these truckers do not want to go wait there until their time is, until they've got their slotted time to deliver to Kroger. So I think that's one of those things, again, I think it goes back to like what Alex said. Let's go out, let's have a discussion with these folks and see what we can figure out.
I think we'd like to have that discussion, and I'd be happy to look into some of those cities. My experience with the other cities that I've worked in is that the language is very similar to this. I don't think you're going to find that adopted standard that says a distribution facility must have this many spaces. I just don't think it's out there. But I'll look. I'm happy to look. Even on some of those cities that have large numbers of these, it's going to be language that says they need to have adequate, and that would be reviewed as part of the site plan review process. So, but happy to bring that back for additional discussion next time.
Maybe talk with Tyson. He's one of their drivers, and he told me that the Kroger place in Colorado, I can't remember what city it was, they provide a big place for him to park. So maybe talk to him about that. I don't remember the details. I just had a short conversation with him on it.
Be happy to.
I can verify the one in Tolleson, Arizona has plenty of parking as well. So I think it's just, this was their initial warehouse. They've certainly grown the manufacturing portion. They've really, and thank goodness they have. I mean, it's been beneficial to our city, but I think it's one of those things that can be worked out, providing we can get the right person within the organization to talk to.
Well, I'm not looking forward to any real substantial progress now, but when they expand, which they have the property to expand, then it should be solved definitely then.
So there again, that's something that last time we discussed a developmental agreement. We can write it in there as well. So, we have a couple options on how to handle this particular one.
Yeah, even now we can ask if they're willing to use some of that space for that
For
staging.
parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can always
All right.
talk.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. I think we've kind of beat this one up. This is a public hearing, though, and we are going to keep this one open. Is there anyone in the audience that would care to comment on that? I'm going to turn to our attorney and see if there's been anything online that we need to address. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, council, do you feel good about our discussion so far and willing to take action on this public hearing? Okay, if so, then what I'd need is a motion to close the rezone request so we can vote on item A, which was at 1458 North Fort Lane. And in the same motion, if you could, make it to where we'll leave item B, the municipal code change for our parking, open until a date certain. Anybody care to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that we close the public hearing on the rezone request at 1458 North Fort Lane. And we leave the other public hearing open. And I make the motion that we pass ordinance 2028 approving that rezone at 1458 North Fort Lane. Just one question with Chad. It's my understanding the planning commission does the plat approval. That's
Yep.
done based on this approval.
That's right. The plat was approved contingent on this being approved.
Okay,
The
so
last
that's my
meeting.
motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Is there any further discussion?
Do we need to put a date certain?
On the second one,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to continue that to your next
Sure.
meeting.
September
17th.
17th, what I think was the date, right?
Okay.
Yeah, are these the applicants?
Yeah.
Been here for almost 3 hours.
I know. Patience.
So thank you. No, I'm sorry that you had to sit through all that. I mean, I'm not really actually going to apologize, but this is municipal government in action. So thank you for sitting through the whole thing. This looks like something that will be good for the community, and it's, parents. I represent a lot of elderly clients, and when they pass on, they don't want to sell, and when their kids get a hold of that property, they don't want to maintain it. So it's something that happens quite a bit. So yeah.
Good.
And it looks good from my seat. So thanks for bringing it in and for being patient.
And I've got a couple of waters for you, for staying. One of you is going to have to go without.
Okay. Okay, council, let me bring this back around then. We've had a motion and a second on our public hearing, so I'll need to take a roll call vote on this. So I'll start with the birthday boy, Mr. Thomas.
What are we talking about?
The rezone.
I'm all for it.
Tom's motion.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilman Bloxham?
Aye.
Councilman Day?
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It's unanimous. Okay. That brings us down to any unfinished business. I don't think.
We've left it all unfinished, except one.
Just one item. Okay, seeing that there's no unfinished business, I'll entertain a motion to close our council meeting for this evening.
I make a motion, we close this meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank
Aye.
you very much. And yes, thank you so much for your patience.
And there's going to be a test on the parking
You're not,
questions before you leave, so.
You're not counting the.